Welcome to Parks Associates virtual events. There are several tools in the platform to help you connect with others, interact with live sessions, and download session content. If you missed a live session, you can go back at any time to watch on demand. Go to the Watch Replays tab and click on the session that you'd like to view. Have you created your own event agenda? From the Agenda tab, click on the calendar icons to add items to your My Events schedule. You can also add sponsors and items to view later. We want you to connect with our industry-leading speakers and sponsors. Check out the Speakers tab and the Sponsors tab to meet them. Sponsors have uploaded additional materials available for download. Make sure to visit sponsor booths for any companies that interest you to chat with a member of their team. The panelists and speakers will address your questions live on the stream. Use the live discussion feature to ask your questions or answer polls. We're on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. If you're watching any of our events on the go, you can tune in via the Parks Associates event app. Download it for quick access to any on-demand replays, to connect with other attendees at our virtual or in-person events, and keep track of your event agenda. If you need help navigating the virtual platform, please reach out to a member of our team by visiting the Parks Associates booth or by mentioning at Parks Associates in the live chat.
Throughout this year, we'll gather and share Parks Associates' latest research on the video and connected entertainment industries with insights on consumer behaviors and preferences and the challenges for the video industry in meeting these expectations. After 2 years of virtual events, we are also announcing the return of our in-person events in 2022. We hope you join us in December as we gather again for impactful sessions with insights from industry leaders and best-of-class research from Parks Associates analysts. Nothing beats the knowledge, conversations, and community that come from meeting in an in-person setting. We survey 10,000 broadband households each quarter to provide the most reliable and accurate view of the OTT, pay TV, and digital media markets. Future of Video brings together industry leaders to share insights on new trends in the video and connected entertainment industries, with insights on consumer behaviors and preferences and the challenges for the video industry in meeting these expectations. It features in-depth consumer and industry research on OTT services, the value of content, and best strategies for building successful video services for today's connected consumers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Parks Associates Future of Video session, Personalization and the New Video Viewer. To give you a brief overview of today, I'll kick things off with my insights and view of the market. Then I'll dive into our opening panel discussion on new video experiences, live, social, and interactive, presented by Comcast Technology Solutions. On our panel today, we have Alexander Kan, Chief Executive of Together TV, Ed Lagzinski, founder and CEO of Zype, Michelle Perkins, co-founder and chief product officer of Fade Technology Solutions, Deshauna Spencer, founder and CEO of Coeli TV, and last but not least, Martin Webb, who is the senior product manager of Cloud TV at Comcast Technology Solutions. Then at noon, Parks Associates President and CMO Elizabeth Parks will conduct our fireside chat with Rob Gellick, Chief Product Officer at Paramount. And to close out the day, my colleague, Paul Erickson, will lead a packed panel discussion on building loyalty through content presented by ADIA. At the end of each panel, we have an audience Q&A with the speakers. So I'd like to encourage our audience to submit your Q&A questions for our panelists via swap card at any time during this discussion so we can address with our panel at the end of the session. We'd like to take a moment to first thank our sponsors that make today's session and the Future of Video series possible. Our research partners, ADIA, First Light Media, FPT, the Symphony Media AI, and our platinum sponsors, Comcast Technology Solutions and Metrological. Thank you for all of your support of Future of Video. We want to thank our media and industry association supporters who make today possible as well. Our platinum supporters, Connected Design, From the Ground Up Living Lab, the Media Institute, and the Z-Wave Alliance. And our additional supporters, Construction Tech Review, EnergyCom.il, the Home Grid Forum, Innovation and Tech Today, Residential Tech Today, and the Monitoring Association. Thank you all for your support of Future of Video. To give you a view of what we've got in store for the rest of the year, our next event is September 22nd on digital piracy and distribution. And then we have a return to in-person event in December for our final Future of Video event to cap off the year. Be sure to join us in September and December for a full slate of thought-provoking Future of Video session with in-depth insights from decision makers across the industry. If this is your first time interacting with us, you should know that Parks Associates is an independent marketing research firm that has been in business for over 35 years and specializes in covering emerging consumer technologies. And you'll see some of that research throughout our session today. So please let us know if we can help guide your strategic decision-making and product planning in any way. So we have a full slate of valuable insights and perspectives on tap today, with 2 discussion panels and some terrific panelists lined up for you. I'd like to kick things off by laying the groundwork for today's 2 panel discussions from the Parks Associates perspective. Before we begin, let me introduce myself. I am Eric Sorensen. I'm a senior contributing analyst at Parks Associates within the entertainment team, and I cover the OTT streaming media services and the sports media landscape. I've worked in sports, news, media, and the entertainment space for almost 20 years. And during that time, I've worked on partnerships, product development, content development, and digital streaming strategies. So I am honored to be here today to discuss this important topic. So let's dive right in. While watching traditional TV or channel surfing provides that lean back experience, because of the growth of the broadband connectivity, streaming services open the doors to the possibility of creating more engaging and immersive experiences for the streaming viewer. One area that saw an uptake in usage during the height of the pandemic is the use of co-viewing experiences with family and friends in another location. Additionally, in the realm of sports content, live interactive wagering and fantasy are not only creating better sports viewing experiences, but driving revenue. Dynamic and personalized ads are also adding to the online experience and growing in adoption by both services and consumers. Another area that we will look at this afternoon is how content creators and influencers are bypassing traditional streaming business models and launching their own OTT apps directly to consumers and creating a more immersive experience for their fans. So let's first look at consumer sentiment on co-viewing and social viewing experiences. While many people were unable to attend theaters during the pandemic, several providers promoted the idea of enjoying a movie or an event with friends or family in another location. Most consumers who do engage in co-viewing use traditional methods like calling or video chat apps. However, about 1 in 5 did use a co-viewing application, and 25% said that they would be very likely to try a co-viewing feature if it was offered by their favorite video service. So among the services that offer co-viewing, use is particularly strong among Apple TV Plus and sports OTT subscribers. While people are at home, they traditionally consume more content and watch it more frequently with others. Co-viewing, according to our most current data, is most prevalent among homes with children. While Apple TV Plus is the most frequently utilized service for co-viewing, it's not the dominant source for children's content. Add-on services such as Screener and Teleparty and Cast offer dedicated co-viewing experiences. Additionally, although the poll did not expressly reference watching sports material, 41% of respondents indicated that they engage in co-viewing through a sports streaming service. Males between the ages of 18 and 44 are the most frequent consumers of co-viewing experiences, which may reflect the widespread usage of co-viewing for sports content. This is indicative of the live nature of sports and not wanting to miss the water cooler moments with family and friends. The practice of co-viewing is also very widespread among Hispanics and Black African Americans. For sports fans, interactive features such as viewing stats or fantasy games on another device is common practice, indicating, if offered, personalization of interactive features would see an uptick in usage on a single device or service. Wagering is becoming more popular as services offer the service within the live stream. However, as an industry, the latency time for streaming services still remains a challenge when it comes to placing a wager on live action. Many sports broadcasters have teamed up or launched their own sportsbook to satisfy demands. In a new feature experience, Fubo TV launched Fubo TV Sportsbook, which allows players to place bets using real money on the live action of the sport event they're watching. Users can acquire points and compete against other friends and other Fubo TV users by making predictions. The games are accessible to subscribers on connected TVs, smart TVs, gaming consoles, and mobile applications. Fubo TV does have plans to offer rewards to the free-to-play games at a later date. So of those sports fans who would be willing to use an interactive feature if offered, 41% said they would view sports stats within the stream as the feature they would likely use the most. However, 51% said they would not be willing to place a bet within the live stream itself. This indicates that there is some skepticism of the authenticity of a wagering feature or latency of the streaming services. So as we think about content creators going directly to consumers, according to Signal Fair, there are over 50 million content creators in the entertainment ecosystem. A trend that we're seeing in new video experiences is that popular digital content creators are circumventing established distribution models and building their own streaming apps from the ground up. For instance, Kevin on Stage was created by comedian and multi-viral content producer Kevin Fredrickson. The niche streaming service is available on web, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, iOS, and Android. Content features reality and scripted programming created exclusively by Fredericks and partners for his audience. Services like Kevin on Stage are also creating personalized in-stream promotions, merchandise, and exclusive offers. Because of the dedicated social audience and like-minded viewers of the content, dynamic product placement creates a more personalized and immersive experience for those direct-to-consumer services. So the appeal of owning a streaming app lies in the revenue potential and retaining content ownership rights. Digital content creators like Fredericks are able to continue to monetize their popularity and bring audiences gained on social media to video sharing platforms to their streaming apps. With their own streaming app, creators also get to retain exclusive ownership and control of their content. Higher subscriber retention or low churn rates could be predicted from these streamers, as customers are less likely to abandon a service for which they have a strong brand loyalty. These smaller niche services will likely establish themselves as a coexisting presence in the market over the next few years. So now that I've briefly laid the backdrop for our discussion to follow, I'm happy to lead our first discussion on the new video experiences, live, social, and interactive, presented by Comcast Technology Solutions. And we have a great panel with a mix of perspectives on the topic today. So as I mentioned, for our discussion, we have Alexander Kan, who is the Chief Executive of Together TV, Ed Lagzinski, founder and CEO of Zype, Michelle Perkins, co-founder and Chief Product Officer of Fade Technology Solutions, Deshauna Spencer, who is the founder of Coeli TV, and Martin Webb, who is Senior Product Manager of Cloud TV, Comcast Technology Solutions. So first up is Alexander Kan. Alex, thank you for joining us. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and what Together TV for Good is?
Hi, thanks, Eric. Yeah, I'm Alex Kan. I run Together TV. We're a social purpose broadcaster in the UK. We've been a linear TV broadcaster for around 20 years. We rebranded and relaunched about 5 years ago. And over the years, we've had involvement in the streaming space in various ways, whether working in partnership with other broadcasters like the BBC or Viacom in the UK. And recently, we launched our own streaming platform across several devices and are continuing to roll it out across CTV platforms. Our ethos as a channel is to inspire our viewers to make changes in their lives and in their local communities. And we do this through real-life story and factual content. So a lot of lifestyle-driven content and a lot of documentary. So it's all real-life stories, all unscripted. And we've got a video to share with you, which will show you a little bit more. So let's start the video.
It's very, very exciting.
To be part of a community, to work together.
Are you up for it? Yeah. I think that was a yes in his.
I think that might have been a resounding yes.
You with me?
Let's go.
It's about all of us.
Support each other. It makes such a difference.
It's not all play, there is some work to do.
Do something bold.
Well, there are lots of quirky customs in Britain.
And breathe.
Let's go.
That's what it's all about.
That's the idea. Well, we got to. Cheers.
No more talking now.
No.
No.
It just feels like a proper community, doesn't it? I really want you to get involved.
That was fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. Together for Good. I love the concept. So we'll have you talk a little bit more about this when we get into the panel. But I was impressed that our audio and video worked perfectly for you to cue that up for us. So thank you.
That's great. Thanks.
Next in our panel, we have Ed Lazensky, founder and CEO of Zype. Ed, thanks for joining us. Are you there? Can you tell us a little bit about what Zype does?
Hey, Eric. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm Ed Lazinski, CEO of Zype. Zype's mission is to connect the world's video and viewers, and we do that by providing an API-first software platform for media and entertainment companies to connect to the video ecosystem. So we are kind of known for our infrastructure in connecting into the OTT space, particularly the mobile and TV marketplaces. You see a bunch of those logos here, as well as linear television as well, with our streaming playout systems that connect to platforms like Samsung TV and Roku and Pluto and everything else. We are a Backlake company. We're part of a family of companies that are focused on connecting content owners into their audiences, and we're really excited to talk about the future of video with you today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being part, and we'll call here in just a moment. Next on our panel is Michelle Perkins. She is the co-founder and chief product officer at Fade Technology Solutions. I had a chance to catch up with Michelle a little bit yesterday. So Michelle, I want you to tell us about Fade Technology Solutions and the in-stream products you're building.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Perkins, co-founder and chief product officer at Fade Technology, overseeing the innovation and product development. What we really are in is that our mission is really helping the industry to make a better OTT experience. At Fade, we're developing pioneering technology that enables in-video purchases for IP and ads in OTT, as well as digital publishing. So we're very excited to participating in this panel as well and talk about what's next coming up in OTT that will engaging consumers and brands in the new environment that's much more storytelling and tap into the power of the OTT that bring to the consumers.
Yeah, I look forward to having the discussion about the merchandise and the shopping piece. I know we talked a little bit about that, and we'll certainly bring that up in our discussion. So thank you for being a part of our discussion today. Next up is Deshaun Spencer, who is the founder and CEO of Coeli TV. Hi, Deshaun, are you there with us?
Hey, I'm here.
Hi, tell us a little bit about Coeli TV.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. So I'm Deshaun Spencer. I'm the founder and CEO of Coeli TV. We are a digital platform that celebrates global Black stories, and we amplify Black storytellers from across the globe. We have independent films, documentaries, web shows, children's programming, animation, and we also do live experiences. We have Black stories representing here in North America, parts of Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, Asia, Australia, everywhere, Europe, everywhere. And our whole goal is to really curate content that's a true reflection of the global Black experience. Kweli means truth in Swahili. Right now, we have over 600 global titles on our platform. 90% of our films have been in film festivals, and 65% of our films are award-winning. So we're really about curating a really amazing programming that changes the Black narrative. We are also working with over 450 filmmakers from across the globe. So we have a lot of content creators that we interact with. 60% of our subscription revenue actually goes to our content creators. And we have about 47,000 registered users on our platform. And I'm really excited to talk more about what we're doing, especially when it comes to creating a community around Black storytelling with our particular audience.
That is a fantastic overview. You said something there that I'm really interested in, which is sharing the revenue back to the content creator. So I look forward to bringing that up in our topic here with the rest of our panel. So thank you for being with us this afternoon.
Definitely.
Last but not least is Martin Webb. He is the Senior Product Manager at Cloud TV, Comcast Technology Solutions. Martin, are you with me? There you are. Tell us what Comcast Technology Solution does and a little bit about Cloud TV.
Brilliant, thank you. And brilliant to be on this panel. It's a fantastic panel, such a broad variety of people and organization types on here. So I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So just to briefly introduce Comcast Technology Solutions, we bring the Comcast technology to market and we target broadcasters, operators, and direct-to-consumer providers globally. Cloud TV brings together our video platform with the rest of the Comcast Technology Solutions portfolio. We build that solution to be programmable, not just configurable. We build it for massive scale, and so we have a number of major sports properties as customers, for example. But our key focus is really on enabling our customers' digital transformation journeys. And I know that's a well-trodden topic, but it's still something that's ongoing because we see it as something that's split into two phases. The first phase, very much done now, as everybody was trying to launch an online service. Initially, that was hard enough just to get something going. But the second stage for us is really where things get interesting because in the second stage, it's about organizations going through a business change process as well as a technology change process to bring the online world together with the existing technology distribution that they had. And so that opens up a whole new set of growth options. But as I said, it's a business change process. It's not something that can be achieved overnight. And to link that into the topic for today's panel, engagement really is a key topic for us. Now, clearly, obviously, higher engagement means lower churn, and so that makes our customers more successful. But it's also because as organizations pivot to that second stage, engagement becomes the next key battleground. Everyone's looking beyond subscriber acquisition to keeping viewers in their environment. And so that's leading to a big change in the roles of different organizations in the market. So operators, for example, are finding their role as super aggregators. Content providers and broadcasters are seeing the engagement benefits to working with operators in that model. But increasingly, engagement tools need scale. It needs the breadth of audience. More content is better. A broader set of aggregated and anonymized data is better. It provides a more holistic view. And so all of those things feed together into a broader story where engagement is becoming a bigger and bigger topic.
For sure. Well, thank you for sort of the full overview. I know it's certainly a lot, and the different tentacles that you guys have with your business. I know that we won't go too in depth into all the partners that you work with, but I certainly appreciate you sharing all of that with us. So our full panel is now assembled. We're all here, so I appreciate again all of you you being here. So let me try to jump right in with our first question here on this topic, and it's sort of for the group. But looking at the big picture and considering the variety of consumer choices, what do we think are sort of the retention strategies that are proving to be most successful? And maybe I'll start with Alex first on this one.
Sure thing. Thanks, Eric. Martin, it's quite interesting talking about engagement. I'd like to talk about that a bit later on because another big bit of what we do is all around our engagement stack that we've built, which is this omni-channel integrated stack that enables us to engage with our viewers. But kind of taking a step back from all of that, I think in terms of retention, there are a few things to consider. I think the first one is the model itself. So at Together TV, we're a advertiser-funded VOD service, a streaming service, whereas the levers we have might be slightly different to those who are in the subscription space. If you are a paid-for service, then obviously there are retention elements you can have around discounting and selling passes that are season or annual passes and bundling and other kind of financial mechanisms, especially a point of churn out or potential churn out for further discounts, buy 3 months at the price of one, that kind of stuff. For us, really, it comes back to the kind of content and the comms side of things. In terms of content, we always want viewers to be watching more, whether that's kind of auto-driven or platform-driven recommendations and playlists and other ways that viewers put more investment into the platform, so feel like they're working through content and feel committed to it. And then other mechanisms within it to have in-stream recommendations and promos, which effectively kind of promote the content itself. And then, as with many services, there are things that can go into kind of the overall kind of comms and marketing bucket, which are around notifications, emails, reminders, and other forms of personalization. So I think that those are the three kind of broad things I identified. The other thing I thought as well is, as if your services are carried by some of the kind of platform aggregators, being part of their ecosystems, kind of one button sign up, or having credit card details in there, or social sign in, that will create friction to leaving. So I think will also kind of help reduce churn. But yeah, so I think those are the kind of main things I identified in this area.
Yeah, certainly all fair points that you bring up. I think you brought up one, which was sort of the in-stream process that are creating more of an engaging experience. And I want to turn to Michelle real quick to sort of talk about the merchandising side of things and how that is creating a more immersive experience for consumers.
Yeah, definitely we see that there is a lot of power to the storytelling content where consumers are much more engaged and connecting emotionally to the scenes or to the products that they actually find that they wanted to buy. So 97% of consumers will pop up to shop actually after seeing a product in streaming services, in streaming video. So we believe like creating that embedded buyable moments as part of the storytelling, not interruptive experience will be the key to drive that retention and usage, as well as increase that engagement with the content and the service, and especially in this stage, where AVOD and FAST is growing really fast, that it's, that would be a key differentiator, could be a really key differentiator for service.
So Ed, I think we did have sort of this question pinned for you as well, which is sort of thinking about the feature sets of interactive experiences that engage consumers. When you think about that, beyond what, the main entertainment value of OTT streaming services, what features do you think are really driving that engagement?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think that it really boils down to the services that value elegance of experience, I think, are the ones that are in best position to have interactive experiences, drive retention, drive adoption, drive viewership, ultimately drive viewer satisfaction. So on the simple end, we see, in our space, when we're working with customers that have apps on on mobile platforms and TV platforms, simple things like allowing the user to remind themselves about an upcoming show or an episode, or favoriting that piece of content, because we're all living busy lives and we all have 4 or 5, maybe 6. I have dozens of streaming services, and we might need a reminder, and that reminder might interact with me in an omni-channel way. I might see it on an email later on, or I might see it on the TV, even though I clicked on it in the mobile app. So things like that, the ability to follow content and let the service kind of know a little bit about you, so we can then personalize and make sure that you're coming to that service first. I think, recently I've seen YouTube TV do a really good job of that with their DVR. It's very simple, very easy to use. If there's a show, if I want to, watch, record Jimmy Kimmel, I just favorite it, and like every episode is always recorded every night. I can watch it as soon as I want to. And that's, I think that elegance is really there. And it goes down to also the kind of continuity between contexts. I think interactively, there's a lean back mode that we're in, when we're, 8 o'clock at night, and then there's more of an active mode, maybe on a mobile phone, during the day. And I think, mixing in content like live experiences, whether it's one-to-many, like a TikTok style or Instagram style live experience, or a few to a few, which is more of like a watch party experience, or we have a customer, Investors Business Daily, which does an amazing job of building community around interactivity with a daily roll call show they do in video using Zoom technology that's then broadcasted out to allow their viewers and their subscribers to peer into the sort of the boiler room context of thinking about the stock market for the day. So I think it's that context and that elegance that really drive like meaningful interactive experiences.
You mentioned sort of the social piece a little bit and how services are leveraging social content. Deshauna, do you have a sense of how you guys are best leveraging sort of the Instagrams and TikToks as to engage your community?
Sure. So I'll be honest, like Instagram has been really helpful for us more than any other platform so far. We're just getting to TikTok. So I always tell people, don't ask me on TikTok because we're still feeling our way through it. But I would say Instagram has probably been the most efficient for us. We've done live screenings on Instagram, like just like a few minutes of a video and then having a conversation with a filmmaker. We were doing regular series on Instagram where we were just having conversations with our filmmakers, even having conversations just in general about social justice issues that people were hearing about, seeing and scrolling on social media, and people wanted to talk more about it. I would say our biggest engagement has actually been not on social media, but just through our community in general. We've been focusing a lot on keeping our community within our community and our platform. One of the things that we've noticed as a platform is that a lot of times with these social media algorithms, 1 minute we have like 70,000 followers, and at one point you get all this engagement, and then they change the algorithm and it changes. And so to me, it's a bit chaotic for us as a company. We don't want to rely solely on social media as be the end all to the success of our company. And so we've been focusing a lot on like, how can we reach our customers no matter where they are? How can we have engagement if Instagram went away tomorrow? And so we've been focusing a lot more on having screenings on our platform. So we have live events on our platform. We had events in person, but thanks to COVID, which were the events in person were really successful. It was called Mimosa and Movies, and we would have a brunch series with mimosas in different cities, and we would have like some short film screenings with discussions with local filmmakers in those communities. And to me, that's been a community because the people who were attending were like, wow, this filmmaker lives not too far from me, or this filmmaker is a part of my community. And we were just creating a way where people felt like they were part of something versus I'm watching the movie, I'm just gonna turn my TV off for the night. Like, wow, I'm a part of something bigger than that. And so for us within the community, it's really been going to the community, whether it's at events in person or whether it's creating an ecosystem online by having virtual events. Our customers love to meet our filmmakers. They love understanding the concept behind why they create the film. A lot of our films are social impact films. And so we end up having very lively discussions around the topics in the film. And even beyond filmmaking, just around self-care. One example in particular, in 2020, we know what happened with George Floyd. We were starting to do these self-care sessions because the pandemic was hard for a lot of us, and it really impacted the Black community. And so we had this healing session that we were going to have where it was going to be a hip hop meditation person. That sounds oxymoron, hip hop meditation, but it's actually pretty cool. And so it was interesting because the day that we scheduled it was actually around the time of George Floyd. It was pretty much like sometime it was scheduled maybe like a week or so afterwards, and in our community was just reeling from it. And it came right on time, even so much so that even the person facilitating was having a hard time getting through the session because we're all sort of just mourning at that point. But it was so important. We had a huge following of people who had attended that event. It initially was just for members only, but because of what was happening, we decided to open up to anyone who wanted to attend because we felt like it was important to just offer the opportunity for people to meditate and decompress versus saying, this is members only. But we do have a lot of members only types of events. And then finally, I would talk about as a niche platform, I've been doing a lot of research and it comes to like previous companies that have been successful, and people subscribe or want or stick around because they see me. We're not this big conglomerate company. Like, I'm an everyday person. When I do the lives on IG, on our social media platform, it's me, it's the CEO of the company. And people are like, wow, like they feel like they're a part, they know me personally. And even when we get emails from customers, they say, hey, Deshauna. They don't say, hey, Clay TV. They say, hey, Deshauna. And, my team like forwards them to me. But to me, it goes to show you that people want to be a part of something. They feel like, wow, this is an everyday person who created this thing, and I feel like I'm part of her community. And I think just having, as a niche market, we have the opportunity to be able to create those types of experiences, just like Orville Redenbacher, which I watched on History Channel.
Yeah.
He had his face and everything. Colonel Sanders and Wendy's daughter, things like that. Like, people like that, and I think we should think more about that too, and touch the heartstrings of people to keep them on board.
I think you said a handful there, and I wrote down some notes here on some things that I wanted to ask some other folks to address, but I don't think I got to them all. But one of the things that you did say, and I'd like to give Alex the chance to sort of talk a little bit about how they're doing this as well, which is keeping your community engaged with your platform. How do you feel like you're doing that, and what are the success stories that our audience could learn from what you're doing? Are you there, Alex? Yeah.
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've been growing our digital audiences and social media audiences quite a lot over the last few years, particularly working quite closely with Facebook and Instagram, the Meta platforms. Our audience tending to be a little older than you would think for average streaming viewers. We have an audience profile that you could call empty nested. So it's a lot of people who are living in homes and their kids have either left home or they don't have kids, and skew quite heavily into their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Throughout the pandemic, we really got a good flavor for how our older audiences want to engage with us, whether it's through kind of email or WhatsApp or SMS, phone calls. But I think in line with that, Facebook is by far our biggest platform. We work with a social video agency called Little Dot Studios, who work with lots of broadcasters and content owners who basically kind of segment and template a lot of our video content into clips and then distribute them through Facebook and YouTube. And we do a bit on Instagram as well. There's kind of splits into a few things. We have a kind of broad audience that quite like consuming our content. We distribute kind of video, but also posts about shows coming out, awareness days we're supporting, video that's specific for social and online and isn't going out on TV or our streaming platform. We also do paid advertising through Facebook and Google. It's a kind of incredible kind of activation platform for some of our behavior change campaigns, bringing in tens of thousands of people into our campaigns pretty quickly. And then we also run a private group on there, which is a small, very caring, nurturing, supportive environment with some of our viewers who are all helping each other with tips and encouragement. So I know my colleagues are approving dozens and dozens and dozens of posts each day and responding to messages, and we have a whole load of kind of safeguarding and customer care thing going on with them. We find Instagram skews a bit younger and a bit more progressive, I would say, than the Facebook audience. And then we work with other platforms on a slightly more B2B basis. So, you know, your Twitters and LinkedIn's we see as primarily for our B2B comms. What we don't do that some other services do is, you know, encourage our viewers to kind of pastiche or remix our content or jump onto you know, challenges or memes and things like that. And we don't really engage with creators as much as we'd like to. But yeah, I mean, we have a pretty sizable reach through social, and we are able to engage them in both our programming and our campaigns that we run on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking about the importance of leveraging your audience and finding that audience through social, right? I think there's other aspects that are sort of important to that new viewing experience, which is sort of the live aspect of content. Both of you sort of touched on live a little bit. Martin, I wanted to bring you back into this conversation a little bit on sort of the live aspect of content and thinking about if live content provides the service or the consumer the opportunity to create meaningful engagements, and how you're seeing that work with some of your customers.
Yes, again, another great question. I think we have the benefit of being able to see the a lot of these questions play out in aggregate across
Mhm.
a lot of customers. And particularly when it comes to event, live content, linear channels, sports content, that's often a real anchor part of the content provider's content library, in sports, obviously, but also reality TV. And in terms of modeling engagement, which really is a sort of inverse of churn, there's a number of ways of driving engagement. We've talked about a few of them in the panel already. Cost, content are two of them. As a technology vendor, we can't really influence those, but the user experience is one where we can really help our customers. And but of that model, I think live content really feeds into the content driver of that engagement model. And so it's the fear of missing out, the time sensitive nature of live and event content that can really help with engagement. And there's many ways of building on that and making the best of that kind of content. So flexible workflows, which becomes increasingly possible with a more cloud-based environment, allows our customers to syndicate content really quickly to social. We see customers using that to create a buzz around the content, to really maximize the time-sensitive nature of event content, but also rapid clipping. So using artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques to shorten the production time for clip content, and generate things like automatic highlights packages to help users catch up with the event. All those things really play together. In addition, real-time engagement. So we've talked about that. That feeds into, if you look at, it's been multiple studies of the best tools for driving engagement, the user experience being one of the key areas there, and real-time engagement feeds into that model. Voting being a key part of how to drive real-time engagement. We've mentioned that already. So live content, event content, sports content, that's a key part of our content providers' content catalog. It really feeds into how they can drive engagement, particularly by combining that with new techniques to really make the most of that content, with interplay between the live player and social and on-demand content.
So Martin, you touched on actually what our poll question is there. A lot of that you just sort of mentioned is sort of thinking about, and for those of you in the audience, please take the poll. We'll review the results here at the end, but what interactive features can drive the most engagement? Looking at polls and voting, sports betting and wagering, whether that's gaming or chat features and co-viewing experiences, loyalty programs, e-commerce merchandising, shoppable IP, and ads. And so now I wanted to sort of turn to Ed and sort of ask the question about how are streaming services personalizing the experiences with product placement or personalized advertising experiences?
Yeah, this is a really exciting kind of development over the last few years, or really has started to heat up in 2022. What we're starting to work with our customers on and help with is the ability to personalize the stream itself. So you're thinking about, I have a music video, a short form clip, a TV format series, a movie, and in those moments, right, inside the content itself, I have, I'm on the wrong side, squares like this where I can paint things, and I have walls, and I have tables, and I have all this kind of stuff. And imagine if I could dynamically place product placement or advertising in stream. And you've seen this technology more industrial grade in like sports over the last 10 years, where you have dynamic billboards and dynamic playing surfaces, like ads on the basketball court that change and every 15 minutes. But imagine if it was personalized to you. So, I'm really bullish on this because it creates more monetization opportunities for publishers. So for the publishers here on the panel, as you sell through your inventory, CTV ad inventory, if you're doing advertising, is in huge demand. This creates new ad inventory without disrupting customer experience, and it's relevant, right? I think relevancy really matters.
something Deshauna said about the personality side of things. I think it really resonates with me as I've worked with a lot of vertical networks and niche publishers over the last 7 years since we started Zype, is those that have relevance through personality, through the lookalike kind of products and things that they, hey, I like this product, my audience likes this product, let's talk about this product, let's talk about this thing. Like, these things create sort of more passive engagement. I think they really matter, and ultimately drives more revenue for our space, because we're selling out of connected TV inventory and advertising. We need more. At the same time, there's a lot of broken opportunities in terms of ad avails. I mean, how many of us have sat through a TV show and saw the slate that there's, please stand by, we'll be right back. We couldn't find an ad to show you. So we're still figuring some of this stuff out, but I'm really excited about the ability to manipulate and personalize the stream itself to the household or to the individual. I think it's going to be a big game changer over the next couple of years in our space.
For sure. And I think I saw Michelle making some head nods there. I think as we think about shoppable IP, tell us what that is and how you envision that working in the future.
Yeah, no, Ed, we should really talk after the call. I think it's super interesting. We've seen those dynamic ad placements in sports events, especially, and as well as IP that, and when, say, a billboard space can be in the back in the scene can be filled by, Pepsi's ad or Coca-Cola's ad. Things like that. But I think we are in this very key moment when streaming is so prevalent and all the content, and with content that's much more, especially content like Emily. You think about the content like the Bear, for example. A cooking, a food drama series on Hulu. And what if you want to buy that knife, the chef's knife that you really love, and it show up in several scenes. You go online and you look for where the product is, or even it's buyable from whichever vendor selling it. And so it's a lot of very inconvenience for consumers who are just dying for instant gratification type of right now, especially among the Gen Zs. And so you lose a lot of this type of buyable moment opportunities for viewers, and creating that higher engagement with the content. Even with, I think there's also the there's obviously industry issues about content rights and where you can put products and merchandise in the content IP, especially. We see that there's opportunities to create more of ancillary type of content, like behind the scenes type of content, like Fox. And I think the last I saw was like there's a series that created by Focus Features, and they create a series about celebrating the whole costumes that featured in their films, right? And so it's really targeting fashion fans that really wanting to know how those behind the scenes, where can I buy that particular outfit that I love in Emily Paris's series, or you just take a lot of time to try to look for those products, and we have an opportunity to provide that convenience, and as well as creating new set of content to engage those type of movie fans or TV series fans.
So what you're telling me is, if I see something in Stranger Things that I want to buy, I'm going to be able to do that at some point, right? If somebody's wearing an outfit that I want to buy, eventually someday I'll be able to do that.
Yeah, it does take a lot of effort to orchestrate that with the brands and sellers, as well as the studios, the content creators and publishers. But we see that it's a win-win-win situation for everyone. As creating a whole new business model. Besides the ads as well, in addition to the ads and subscription model.
For sure. Well, I do want to, we have about 10 minutes, actually 8 minutes left. The conversation is going so well that we didn't get through all of our questions. And I want to do a couple questions from our audience here. And I'll keep all of you guys on the screen and give me a head nod if you're ready to answer this one. But here's a question from the audience, which is, what about the new generations who are watching on their iPad or playing games on the big screen and talking to their friends on their phone? How will the multi-content experience be measured? And is the new experience a split focus when it comes to video? I know that seems like a lengthy question there, but Ed or Martin, yeah, it looks like you want to take this one.
Yeah, I think we've been seeing this idea, like, with the sort of the first wave, like OTT services, we're really focused on customer acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get that user in my funnel and get them to subscribe? And then now we sort of have like a retention cycle that's getting really interesting. And it's particularly with the younger generations. How do I let them know that this content, this special, this whatever it is I want them to watch and engage is available when they're not the subscribers, right? Like it's mom and dad's subscription or someone else in your family. And what I've seen successful is when the platforms are leveraging social to sort of use it as a big time promotion channel for next season, new season, whatever it is, and do it all across multiple social platforms. So I see Amazon Prime is doing a really good job of this in what they recently had, like season 3 or 4 of The Boys, which is sort of like a anti-superhero show, and it's really attractive, sort of like young male audiences, and a lot of them are teenage boys or college age, that type of thing, that probably don't subscribe to Amazon Prime themselves. They're probably on mom and dad's subscription. So they had a campaign where they really engaged around that community in TikTok and Instagram at a level that I'm sure was probably more than they had spent for other shows in the past. We did some analysis on it. You could see that the level of engagement and the implied spend was probably a lot higher, but it got that show back into the zeitgeist and probably helps retention long term when mom and dad are thinking about, hey, do we really watch this service or not? And the kid's like, no, I love that show on that channel. So that retention cycle and thinking about the whole family, I think really matters. And even for like vertical networks and more niche networks, just being ready to engage on these platforms is how you can communicate with that demographic. Like just starting to, and like you mentioned, like Instagram might be easier than TikTok, but these things are available. And I think we have to be prepared to spend marketing dollars on retaining customers, just like we do with acquiring customers, really, and do it outside of your platforms, basically.
I would, if I can extend that point, I would agree. I think, I see my kids split focus their viewing, try to around the bend, leave the telly on whilst they're watching YouTube and playing games at the same time. But I think all of these themes kind of come back together with the concept of personalization, and we've talked about that quite a few times. I think personalization actually is more than just the content side. I mean, we view personalization as something that is both is content, it's the UX and the offers. We're increasingly seeing in the market as end users are stacking more SVOD services, then those services are struggling to retain users. Increasingly, services are pivoting to advertising. Advertising can open up new revenue streams. We touched on that with the shoppable ads concept we talked about a second ago. And that really helps play into targeting that younger demographic with the split attention. They really enjoy services that are personalized to them. They can access services that are funded through advertising more readily. So personalized or targeted advertising will really help monetize those audiences, bring them into your service, and then you can retain them and perhaps upsell them with personalization in other areas. Offers, we have one broadcaster in Europe that has such an extensive set of really hyper targeted offers to move users through the chain and upsell them and retain them. The offer personalization becomes a key element of it as well. So all of these personalization elements blend together, the business model, the content, the UX, and that can help target those younger audiences.
So we're about 3 minutes left in our session, but you hit on something which is better understanding the user base. And I wanted to ask Deshauna if you could share with us just sort of what you have learned about your, briefly, because we got 3 minutes left and I got one more question I need to get to and the poll question, but we'll get it all done. But if you could briefly share with us what you've learned about, so your audience, right? Specifically the niche audience that you serve. What have you learned about the user base and how are you leveraging that information or that data?
Okay, I'll be quick. So one of the things I've definitely learned about the user base is they care about brands that care about what's happening in the world. And so that's why a lot of times, a lot of content that we have on the platform, we want to focus on stories that are impactful, that change the world. And they feel like they're changing the world by being active with the stories they see on our platform. In addition to that, our customers are really more likely to be engaged like through live. So when we have live events, we know that they're going to be more likely to have conversations with each other. So we always make sure when we have live events, we have them connecting and creating ways in which they can have conversations. And this calls us to take it a step further, where we're actually creating a Quilly Club, which is a group within our platform that will allow customers to have conversations all the time, not just when we have events, because we've noticed that for our customers, it's really important to build community and keep that community beyond the streaming experience. So I'll keep it at that.
That was fantastic. I think it was just important to sort of recognize that as all of you that are publishers and content creators, as you think about how you're leveraging the information that you're learning from your audience to create that better experience. And I think, you hit on that yesterday when we spoke, and I wanted to make sure that our full audience had a chance to hear you say that as well. So one last question, and then I'm going to reveal the poll here. This is a question that came in from the audience. And I want to see a show of hands who wants to try to take this one. But yesterday, Reed Hastings said that linear TV would be dead in 5 to 10 years. Any thoughts or comments on that? Who wants to jump in on that one? Alex, yeah.
Hi. Well, we straddle both linear and streaming. I mean, certainly in the UK, linear has been in a form of structural decline since around 2010. However, I always point to other examples where there has been media disruption, whether it's cinema or print or particularly radio, which is incredibly resilient.
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing with linear, it is aging, but there will always be a significant cohort of older viewers who will want a linear TV, certainly for the next 10 to 15 years. We get emails every day from refuseniks, from people who do not want to get off of linear TV. It's too habitual for them, much like reading a newspaper or listening to a radio show. So smaller, yes, dead, no.
Fair. Anybody else want to comment on the idea of linear TV being dead in 5 to 10 years?
I agree with Alex.
I like it.
I think it might just be different. And honestly, just pulling our customers, sometimes they don't want to think, they just want to watch. And so we're actually seeing that we have our live channel, people actually like to watch, because sometimes scrolling, you scroll forever versus, oh, this is on, this is interesting, I'm just going to watch it. So I think it's just going to be different. I don't think it's going to go away.
And live is still there for sports, for entertainment.
Yeah.
There are big mass events that people get together to watch through linear. And at some point it can be delivered through IP as well. But certainly, these legacy platforms are going to be around a long time to deliver those big shared moments, I think.
I think one other point you add to that is the on the content discovery side. So I think there's a lot of focus in the industry on algorithmic recommendations, which obviously are great for surfacing content in big libraries. But editorial and curated recommendations are also a huge tool for driving engagement. And you can't beat the linear program guide for just that sort of serendipitous discovery of some new program that you didn't even know you liked, just because it followed on from another program you're interested in, and suddenly you're hooked. So there's, in every new generation of media, I think Ed was alluding to the same point, every new generation of media has talked at the time of pushing out previous generations, but they've all just rebalanced and found new roles in a sort of mixed environment.
That's right. And that's the content publishers and the networks and the brands launching their own direct to streaming services based on their content. So really just leveraging a new platform and repositioning their content certainly makes sense. So let me get to the last question of the day, which is as we look at our poll question, which was, and a lot of these things we touched on and talked about, but what interactive features can drive the most engagement? And from our poll, we actually see that loyalty programs sort of takes the top spot, which I think from the publisher's perspective, you guys have either launched that or are engaged in a loyalty program. Gaming and polls and voting are also up there in the 25 to 24%. So the ones that are sort of at the bottom are the e-commerce and merchandising and shoppable IPs and ads, which I think from a consumer base, this is me sharing my opinion here, probably just not enough knowledge about it to be able to accept it. Does that seem reasonable? Because I certainly think, Michelle, some of the things that you've talked about that experience of being able to make those purchases live in the stream, I think consumers would engage with that product if they were able to really understand it and see it. But any thoughts on sort of the polls and betting or loyalty programs from the group before we wrap up?
Betting is huge. See,
Yeah.
It's just we always go to our kind of base instincts, right? I mean, there's nothing like getting engaged in watching a horse race or a baseball game, being able to participate. I would include fantasy as part of that, and that's just a huge market that's making its way into everything now. So I think we'll see more of that, and there's more. The technology is getting better for more opportunities for that. So like the low latency technology and the streaming technology is getting better and better and better. Networks getting better. So we might have like live betting on sports that we haven't even thought we'd have before because it just become more accessible, I think.
Sure. And I think, from our previous data that we pulled in, sort of talking about placing a wager on a live event, the challenge there was really the industry wasn't caught up with the latency side of things, right? So as that improves, I'm 100% agree with you that interactive feature set is going to become more widespread. And we've looked at all the broadcasters that are now launched their own sports book and where the opportunities are there to drive revenue. So certainly, again, latency, live content on a streaming platform all have to play into that experience as part of that. But I am being told that we are out of time. So I certainly appreciate everybody's insights and appreciate all of you guys being on our panel. If our audience wants to connect with our speakers, I'm sure they are more than engaged to connect with you. And we at Parks Associates are certainly appreciative of all of your perspectives today. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for your open and honest discussion today. So really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you guys in the future.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So that is going to end that session. And in just a few moments, I'll turn our stage over to Elizabeth Parks, President and CMO of Parks Associates, for our fireside chat with Rob Gellick, who is the Chief Product Officer at Paramount. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Since empty offices, video conferencing, and virtual events, working together in new ways, and finding unique ways of connecting with each other, we at Parks Associates are excited to see you face to face to collaborate, network, and innovate. We've brought back in-person conferences in 2022. Join us in December for the next in-person Future of Video, OTT, Pay TV, and digital media. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Great. So welcome back. My name is Elizabeth Parks. I'm the President and Chief Marketing Officer of Parks Associates. And that was a great conversation with Eric and those panelists talking about engagement and the future of video. I am so pleased today to welcome Rob Gellick, Chief Product Officer of Paramount, to our virtual stage. With amazing experience, Rob is now the leader of an enormous conglomerate delivering video content and services. And we're so pleased to have him join us on stage. We're going to talk about personalized experiences, meeting consumers where they're at, the disruption with any device, anytime, and any format for video viewing, and the role of live content, sports, as well as the new metrics tracking streaming services. We're also happy to take audience questions, so please send them in as you have them, and I'll work to incorporate them into the conversation. Before we bring Rob on stage, we're going to go ahead and show you a few video clips from Paramount. So we'll be right back, but watch these videos.
Paramount Plus is a mountain of entertainment. This is Master Chief, Jean-Luc Picard, and this is Making Moves, making movies.
You got this.
And making a mistake.
Oh my God.
This is going big, going all in, and going back to where it all began.
Let's show them what you got.
This is a mountain of entertainment. Paramount Plus, stream now.
Television, Dewey, it's the way into the people's hearts.
Excellent!
I've never seen anything like this.
It's amazing!
I'm so excited!
Great videos there from Paramount to highlight some of the things they're working on, especially with Pluto TV. Rob, thank you so much for joining us. Let's bring you in and start off with an overview of your new role. Tell us what you used to do and now how that's changed, where things are going, and then we'll jump into some of our questions.
Yeah, thanks for having us back, and great way to start with a little teaser for some of our big services. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Paramount Streaming, so my team oversees the product experiences for everything from Paramount Plus to Pluto TV to our network sites and apps, meaning like our legacy businesses, including CBS.com, MTV, the host of brands that we have on a global basis. So exciting times for us as we kind of forge into the space, and excited to be here and talk today.
Well, great. We very much appreciate you taking the time to talk with me and have our audience listen in. So let's start off and talk about the personalized experience and, really meeting consumers where they're at. So are we at the stage where what's old is new? In the sense of the linear experience and the bundles we see coming, we'd really like to start off with that point and then hear a little bit about some of the key offerings that you all have at Paramount.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, from the get-go, we are heavily invested in both free and paid options. We definitely see the future of streaming evolving with free, what I would call broad pay and premium pay offerings in the space. And so it's definitely unique to our strategy that we have a play in all of those areas. Free is obviously Pluto TV. We're the leader in the FAST space. Broad pay with our Paramount Plus offer, and then a premium pay offer with one of our products like Showtime OTT. Is old new again? I guess what I would say is there's a linear component. There's great discussion on the last panel about what the role of linear is moving forward. All of our offers have some critical linear component that's clearly balanced with on-demand viewing, but it's been a huge differentiator for us in the space from the start, kind of being the contrarian in the space and leaning into the power of either local live TV or what I would say is a channel guide of editorially driven program channels. We know that most of our subscribers who view both on demand and linear end up being the most sticky that we have. And while it's an ever evolving space, there's a bunch of factors that weigh into what it means to be successful moving forward. And happy to jump into those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we can start off and just talk about this sort of great unbundling that's occurred over in cable, and then what we see now is a lot of rebundling. How has Paramount really been able to navigate all of this? I mean, there's so many changes in how content is consumed, and then how the offer is made to consumers, and really the fragmentation and the role of choice now is unreal in many cases, in the sense of consumers, having to discover content and then subscribe to it or watch it and create that stickiness.
Yeah, I mean, when you specifically about the unbundling, I think if you look at the services we have, you could tell that we're addressing the total household with our product offers, right? So we believe, like, in order to really be a leader in global streaming, you must really address like all of those segments within your product. So for instance, on Paramount Plus, we have a unique offering with a robust original content library. We have deep library from our catalog and storied franchises. We have live sports. We have breaking news. It's really a broad offering, and that's equally as broad, if not more broad, in our Pluto free streaming product as well. And so I think that's where it starts, where the shift of distribution models and how people consume doesn't change the fact of the breadth of what people like to watch. You may come into a service looking for one thing specifically, but the secret, and I think what differentiates folks, is how you get a breadth of consumption out of any user. So someone coming in for Paramount Plus, maybe originally to watch NFL, how do you expose someone in that live environment to something you think they'll like, get them into that second, third option? It could be a movie, it could be one of our originals, in order to keep them engaged and staying with the service.
Sure, absolutely. And some of this is really talking about transitioning consumers from the traditional models and moving them into streaming if they haven't already made that decision themselves, which really many of them have. So can you maybe share a little perspective on the challenges there with trying to get customers to go where you want them to, and then also perhaps adding in some of the pros and cons of what you see that streaming experience being like for the the viewer?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the advantage of having such a broad set of streaming offers is our ability to move users to the right product for them and realize that maybe we have more than one right product for them. And so some of those tactics are, I would say more predictable, drive awareness for the services in delivering contextually specific messages to them. So probably not a surprise, when we come out with a show on Paramount Plus, like 1883, which is a Yellowstone prequel, that like the proving tactic of marketing to the Yellowstone fans in season on Paramount Network to go see this new series that we're introducing. Those are proving tactics that work time and time again. But we've also included things besides those contextual pitches, a lot of persistent placements. They could be in the main navigation when you go into mtv.com and you see something specific for watching Pluto TV channels that have like an editorial take on some of MTV's most storied brands and franchises directly on that site or more within Pluto, or sign up for Paramount Plus to view a lot of the full catalog and new series that are built off the franchises that we have there. So certainly that appears. Many users don't know that Pluto TV and Paramount Plus are from the same service. So we're trying to drive some transparency there. A great example of that is on Pluto. We have over 50 channels dedicated to Paramount brands that really drive back to our other linear offers, to Paramount Plus itself. You have a dedicated channel called Paramount Picks that's on that service. And we found it being really successful for when people get a taste of something in one service, in that case, on a free service. And we know that we have more available that fits their tastes and their likes, being able to get them over to something like Paramount Plus, where they may have a deeper offering and a more robust offering on that particular product or content, like is key to our success.
Sure, that the focus in there on the content and what's driving the consumer to watch is so important, and that speaks a little bit to some of the direct to consumer services that we've seen enter the market. And so, could you maybe share your view on if you think some of these new services coming out are going to really disrupt things, or will there be these large entities that come in and swoop in and buy them through an acquisition because they see they've been able to capture a very specific audience and add that direct to consumer play back into the mix?
I mean, I think a part of that comes down to how those services are packaged up, what the user experiences. I mean, that's I guess my key area. I mean, you really have to figure out who's delivering that best in class experience, and that is a little bit of a formula or mix of who has must see content, who has really strong, solid franchises and brands, which of the services have ubiquitous distribution, not just here in the US, but around the world, and who's just doing a great job at highly personalizing the viewing experience and gets content discovery right. I think for us specifically, there's a bunch of things that are working well within our experience today. Just going back to that construct of, linear and on demand, we've definitely seen that consumers want both a lean back viewing experience and what I would say is a lean forward experience, where sometimes they want to sit back, put on a channel, let it play through. And if you've been on Pluto TV, we do that best in the market. Obviously, we're the leader in FAST in terms of our reach of that service, pioneered that space. And you would say like, hey, you didn't pioneer linear viewing, but certainly we were a contrarian when that service first came out in the space in terms of saying, hey, lean back linear viewing still really powerful, complemented with VOD. And we've taken a lot of those principles actually that we're working in Pluto, expanded how we do that in Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus has always had some linear viewing component, but if you've noticed over the past months, we've really expanded our channel lineup to include, specific channels around some of our franchises like a SpongeBob or some of the key genres. That could be like classic TV or some of our dramas. And programming that to the base. So I think you'll see the services, really that are successful having this balance of both passive and active viewing as a key component to it. And then again, personalization is at the heart of everything. Really being able to, when someone comes in, not just get them into some content, but get them into something that they truly are passionate about. And then once you've found that one thing, making sure that you're able to present right next opportunities at the right moment. You've just completed the last ep of the current season. How do you lay out the exact right recommendation for something new? That could be right at that moment. It could be at the end of a movie that you've come out to see. It could be at the end of a live sporting event. And I think some of the secret sauce that differentiates each of the services is how everyone approaches that.
Yeah, that's great. And maybe you can expand a little bit about how your the different offerings you have are able to strengthen the overall business. And I want to get into, talking a little bit about data, because certainly data is, the gold mine that is enabling everybody to get those understanding of what consumers are watching, what they want to watch, and how to maybe push things to them. But share with me a little bit more about the strength of the business, and maybe also the branding, and getting consumers to understand all that's happening, when really they're just they're showing up to watch TV, watch a movie, watch a video segment.
Yeah. I mean, something like Pluto TV, we passed 68 million global monthly active users. It's a massive audience. We have over 1,000 channels that we program around the world. It's, an expanding footprint. We're on 3 continents, over 30 countries and territories, US, Europe, Latin America. We're just, when you think about the total amount of hours of programming across our global territory, it's 300 and I think 85,000 hours. It's over 40,000 titles. It's really a tremendous and massive footprint that we've had. Paramount Plus as well has grown substantially. We've passed 62 million, not just Paramount Plus, but our paid streaming services worldwide have passed 62 million global subscribers. Really, this is fueled by quite a bit of investment in the content we've been able to aggregate. Some of that is certainly the original programming. We have these very powerful in-house studios that are the best content producers out there. We've leaned into a number of our franchises, which a lot of our competitors don't have, to make sure that we're using those as a launching pad to engage new series and to bring in existing fans. And we're also taking advantage of our global footprint in production to really start building out content that's specific to some of the new markets that we're launched in as well. It's really helped us get a strong foothold, get some amazing momentum, and then keep that momentum moving forward.
Yeah, that's great. And I do want to also talk a little bit about the global expansion. But before we go there, let's touch more on data and the role of data, particularly as it relates to churn and retention. So maybe could you share with me the overall strategy, if you will, on how you are making sure you've got the subscribers and keeping them, and how data, where that fits in play for you all?
Sure. I mean, data's at the heart of everything we do. We leverage it for everything from our programming decisions to doing predictive churn analysis, as you mentioned. How do we, address churn, to driving literally what programming each individual subscriber sees when they come into the service. So, of course, it all starts with the consumer at the heart of that. And we're seeing that, our tactics are been tremendously successful. On Paramount Plus, the average titles consumed in hours per active sub keep improving quarter over quarter across all demos, really highlighting that our tactics around engagement, content exploration, diversification is really being successful. Similarly, Pluto TV grew in global viewing hours by double digits year over year. So making sure that you're looking at these key performance indicators, staying focused on that is a big part of what we do. I would say data is part of every discipline's job. If you look back, maybe even 5-6 years ago, there used to just be this dedicated group. We're the data team, it included BI and some tracking folks. But, with our capabilities in machine learning really stepping up, it's really been adopted by multiple groups within our organization. So we have, dedicated teams within our marketing group that are looking at things like churn prediction, and with a very high degree, 80+% can predict who we believe on the Paramount Plus side is likely to churn in that month. And it gives us the opportunity to build in outreach mechanisms within the experience to make sure that we're doing what we can to address that prior to that churn event happening, where that turns into, a win back exercise for us. Some of that stuff is predictable, as you can imagine, like something like the end of the NFL season, or you've been watching the latest season of Evil and the season ends. So we know, not just based on that seasonality of content, but based on their consumption habits, how frequently they're coming in. We have a formula to figure out, what those cohorts are. We isolate them and then really, reach out to them to let them know what the offer has that maybe they haven't explored.
And is that outreach? I mean, are you sending an email? Are you texting them? Is that some other subliminal message that shows up on the screen to try and remind them of the service? Can you share any of what's actually happening there?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the tactics have been honing the features that have been around for a while. Some of it comes in the form of notifications, which is really an art of how do you get the right notification to the right user at the right time. Some of it is in our tactics in the cadence of emails that we send to folks, which you would think it'd be more, traditional model, but like what's packaged within those outreach in terms of, making sure that the personalization engine that is deciding what we merchandise to you when you come into the service is also help powering that email so that it is as personalized as the service itself. There's a bunch of things that the team is working on specifically in terms of outreach, in driving open engagement on those to make sure that the right offer is there at the right time, the right piece of content is dropped in at the right time. Ooh, I think Elizabeth, you may be mute.
Sorry. Maybe we can get in a little bit more about sports and how that's a really different, experience for the people viewing, the sports fans, but also I imagine for you all and how you're looking at that segment, especially as you noted, seasons end and things start up again. So is there anything you can share there about maybe different tactics or strategies with that group or that content rather?
Yeah, I mean, sports has been a key pillar of Paramount Plus since the launch, and one of the most major, drivers for some new subscriptions into the service. The reason streaming and sports are such a good fit, really just comes down to one thing, and it's passion. If you can ignite that passion in the story you're telling or within the sports experience, that's really where things start resonating that make this long-term connection between you as a brand and those consumers. So on Paramount Plus, we have the CBS network as part of it, and all of the CBS sports events that are on the network are part of the service. And, these are the biggest events in sports. We have the NFL in key years, we have the Super Bowl, we have the Final Four, we have the Masters, SEC college football. These are the biggest, most prestigious sports in the US, and they're really a cornerstone of our strategy. And then that's paired up with what has been, I think about at this point, it must be 10 separate soccer deals that we've done with Champions League and others to bring in these kind of streaming first offers that have taken us from dozens of events, live events, to at some point we're doing 150, 170 live events in any given week across the service. It just, those are the reasons that people want to come back. Every time they come back, you have an opportunity to showcase everything else that's available to them. And then we're trying to, and starting to take that strategy in a big way on a global basis. So we're already live in Australia with big things like the Australian Premier League. That's both the A-League men's and the W League for women. In August, we're offering English Premier League in Mexico and Central America. So we're taking those tactics that have been proven out in the US market, securing the rights in other key markets, and then repeating those same combination of pairing up live sports with other content offerings to help feed our successful formula.
Well, yeah, and I could also imagine the influencers and the sports players and all of the things that can tie into that engagement with the fans. So there's so many offshoots, I think, possibilities for additional revenue. And we've seen, shows coming out following some of the players. I mean, there's a lot there that people want to watch. They want to know about what these sports players are doing off season in their spare time. So it's really an interesting dynamic there, particularly if you're thinking about advertising and the implications there. So we only have a few more minutes. I feel like I could talk to you for an hour here, or days maybe even. So if you could comment a little bit on advertising, and then we'll move to our sort of closing comments on the future of video.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Pluto, leader in the free ad-supported market. It is all ad-supported in that you've heard the massive scale that we've gotten on that platform. It's a key component. Our sales team certainly has a unique approach. And if you've seen how we've entered the market with IQ, they have packages that allow buyers to come in and target content across all of our services. It really makes us, that pool of content and availability really meaningful for people coming into the service. And certainly even in our premium offers, since the start, Paramount Plus has been a multi-tiered package. We have an entry plan that is ad supported for $4.99. That's our essential plan. For people who prefer an ad-free experience, they can sign up for the $9.99 plan, and in many ways bundle that with some of our other premium offers, as you know, with Showtime and others. But that ad layer has been a key part of our offering since day one. And in order to get to the right balance of, accessibility, making sure that the packages are available, we've certainly found that there is a broad base of people who are investing in multiple streaming services that understand that watching ads to offset some of that barrier to entry is a powerful tool. They appreciate it, they lean into it. And for us, that broader inventory, we really innovated in the way that we approach it to make it available across our different services in a holistic way where buyers can easily come in and target the right audiences and the right content that they want.
Yeah, I can only imagine the fun of whoever's job that is to bring all that content together and then be able to present it to the advertisers to pick and choose where they want to show up. Really, really big jobs there. Okay, to close out, I'd love to hear from you a little bit more on the globalization of services and some of the things that Paramount is working on, really to bring your content to anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly the global strategy is one that we'll continue to invest in. I already give you some of the highlights. We have 62 million global subscriber for our paid services, 68 million global MAUs for Pluto. Really, that is the immediate opportunity for us as an organization to make sure that we get that right. Now, that means that also changes how we approach the content mix, meaning looking at our content that has international appeal and balancing that with content that resonates in each of those markets locally, picking the right markets to expand into and to make sure that the mix of devices, which some cases are very market specific, how you approach privacy, compliance, that we have the underlying mechanics there. But really, we've had as an organization, Paramount Global, like a really well-established global footprint where we have native broadcast sites in many countries in the key markets that we already have these established bases. They become these great launch pads for us to get our new streaming services in market. And then when we look at our catalog, we've always been thinking about global in mind. So, when I talk about Pluto having, 385,000 hours of global content, that's really, part of the plan, right? We've launched 102 new channels internationally, bringing that total to 1,000 global channels. Our global viewing hours, as I mentioned, have doubled year over year. But really, that footprint is so key to our expansion. The learnings that come in around the users in each of those markets, we found that there's a lot of common elements between those behaviors as the markets have matured together. At least in some of the leading markets in Europe and Latin America. And then as we break into other markets outside of that, you'll see us start to introduce new tactics, new plans, new mechanisms to kind of make sure that we reach those users in the market that may be, let's say, more mobile centric in ways that are very specific on a country by country basis.
Yeah, and that sounds pretty complicated too, to be able to, really localize content and, provide an offering that's going to hit the mark with specific consumers in all sorts of different countries around the world. So, Rob, that's going to have to be our last comment. I really want to thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time. You've got, one of the biggest jobs in entertainment, and so we wish you the best of luck as you all move through towards the end of the year. So thanks for being here and look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Elizabeth, thanks for having me back. Really, really always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, we've got our next session coming up, so hang in with us and we'll be right back.
Since empty offices, video conferencing, and virtual events, working together in new ways, and finding unique ways of connecting with each other, we at Parks Associates are excited to see you face-to-face to collaborate, network, and innovate. We've brought back in-person conferences in 2022. Join us in December for the next in-person Future of Video, OTT, Pay TV, and Digital Media. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Parks Associates OTT Video Market Tracker service includes ongoing quarterly analysis of market trends and profiles of 300 plus OTT video service providers in the US and Canada. Consumers are service stacking and hopping in and out of services, paying for a program or season and then canceling when they want. As a result, the average churn rate for SVODs increased to 45% in 2021, a 5.5% jump from 2020. Now, 80% of consumers have an OTT service and 46% of them have 5 or more services. Subscription to the OTT Video Market Tracker includes comprehensive tracking of OTT video services like Netflix, HBO, YouTube, and Amazon, and smaller niche services. Our analysts update deliverables throughout the year, including a monthly update and quarterly subscriber estimates documenting service features, key service differentiators, quarterly subscriber estimates, pricing and business models, updates on existing players, and profiles and industry implications for new services. This research features a great new way to blend company profiles with industry research, data, and analysis of competing players' strengths and weaknesses in the space. To subscribe or request more information, please contact us at sales@parksassociates.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And thanks again to Rob and Elizabeth for that informative fireside chat. Let's now move to our second panel discussion for today, Building Loyalty Through Content, presented by IDEA. Before I begin, a quick intro. I'm Paul Erickson. I'm the Research Director for the Parks Associates Entertainment Team, covering entertainment topics, consumer electronics, and related technologies. And in my close to 2 decades as an analyst, I've covered the video market all over, from both the consumer and service provider ends of the spectrum. And for me, our discussion topic today for our panel is especially relevant because for video services, content has long been considered the king importance-wise. But today, we're going to examine how this has evolved to content being even more important of a factor than ever in today's competitive market, and strategy-wise, how best to leverage content to maximum competitive effect. I'll be your moderator for this discussion, and we've got a diverse all-star panel in store for you with John Cohen, the SVP of Business Development and Distribution at Frequency, Rob Dillon, Head of Digital Product at Straight Arrow News, Jim Long, CEO of Digi, Paul Pastor, Chief Business Officer and co-founder at First Light Media, and Matt Starker, SVP and Head of the Direct-to-Consumer Services Business and Corporate Strategy at Endeavor Streaming. Thank you all for joining us today for this discussion. And before we launch into our discussion, let's have each of you introduce yourselves. First up, we're joined by John Cohen at Frequency. John, welcome. Tell us about Frequency and about what you do as SVP of Business Development and Distribution.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me, and thank you to Parks for putting this event on and bringing everyone together. I lead business development and distribution at Frequency. Frequency is a software company. We are almost exclusively focused on helping content providers and media brands create, distribute, and monetize linear and fast channels globally. Some of our notable content providers are listed at the top, such as Hearst and Jukin and Reverie Scripts, Televisa, Univision. Shout out to them for their launch of their subscription layer VIX today, the Weather Group AFV, and distribute to many partners, fast platforms, connected TV manufacturers globally.
Thanks, John. We've also got Rob Dillon with us. Rob, good to see you again. Can you tell the audience a bit about Straight Arrow News and your role there?
Hey, Paul, thanks. I am currently the head of digital product for Straight Arrow News. Now, that may be something you haven't heard of before, but we are a news startup based out of Omaha, believe it or not. And we have bureaus in New York and Washington, D.C. And our mission is to provide a non-biased news source. In this day and age, as divided as the country are, our founder did research that showed that there was an opening for this niche, and we try very hard to fill that. You notice I don't have a slide on anything that we're working on right now because we're in the middle of a pivot, but our distribution is going to be expanding significantly in the next 6 months. Previously, I was the digital operations director for Tribune Media, which was the broadcasting arm of Tribune, overseeing the OTT creation and distribution and the live streaming for 42 TV stations, a cable network, and a radio station.
Thanks, Rob. Good to hear. We were also joined by Jim Long, CEO of Digi. Welcome, Jim. Tell us about Digi and some of the interesting aspects of being CEO there.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks, Parks, for having me. This is my third digital media startup, and I've done a lot of startups and been a VC and things like that. And Digi is doing local TV streaming, which is primarily linear, except for the fact that, of course, we have a DVR, which is video on demand. So bottom line is we believe in the local broadcast bundle. There's 210 of them in the United States, and we're currently in 24 markets and slowly adding more and more channels. Hopefully we'll have all the channels in the not too distant future.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jim. Next, we've got a second Paul on today's panel, Paul Pastor. Paul, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us about First Light and your role as Chief Business Officer and co-founder?
Certainly. Thank you again, Paul, for having me back. So First Light is a OTT service and platform providing end-to-end platform for needs for OTT tier 1 operators, sitting across multiple verticals, including those that are operators like AT&T and PLDT in Philippines, for sports rights holders like Rogers, Sportsnet, and then for direct-to-consumer like AHA. We're basically in the business of making sure that we can drive, a scaled platform offering driven through both, AV pipeline, ingest, a CMS that it is powerful for programmers, leveraging the best of data with the best of programmers' skills, a playout facility, and as well as a ability to leverage and manage data in a way that will enable product owners and decision makers to drive and retain some of their consumers. My role as Chief Business Officer and co-founder is first to lead sales, to work on business development, lead our marketing and PR efforts, and of course, sit across the big strategic decisions we make as an organization.
Good. Thank you, Paul. And last we have with us Matt Starker. Matt, good to have you with us. Can you share with us a little bit about you and what you do as the SVP and head of the direct-to-consumer services business and corporate strategy at Endeavor Streaming?
Paul, of course, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. It's great to be on a panel with such distinguished colleagues. So Endeavor Streaming is the direct-to-consumer arm of Endeavor. Our platform is a direct-to-consumer streaming platform. We support clients like the UFC, WWE, the NBA, and helping them create their streaming solutions and services. We are an end-to-end platform, so we help them from the moment of content ingestion all the way out to the delivery to their end users. My role over at Endeavor Streaming has 3 responsibilities. So I run our corporate strategy team, sets the vision for the company. I run our business development team, so we run all of our partnerships from product to highly strategic. And then I run our advisory arm, which is helping our clients understand what their opportunity is in the direct-to-consumer streaming space, and then how to realize that.
Great. Thank you, Matt. And good to have all of you with us today. Let's jump in and kick off our discussion. And I think let's start broad to frame the conversation first. And the OTT landscape is extremely competitive today, and content is as important as ever. But from a broad content perspective, how do the needs of today's OTT market differ substantially to 2 years ago, aka pre-pandemic? And what are today's most pressing content challenges? And for this one, I'd like to hear from Rob and Jim on this one. Rob, what are your thoughts on how the content market differs today from 2 years ago?
Well, I think the key to what you just said there was 2 years ago was just at the beginning of the pandemic or just before it. I think the consumer themselves found different ways of consuming content during the pandemic, and those habits have maintained. Obviously, we got the big players like our friends at Paramount that just presented and Netflix and that, but I think there's enough large services, whether they're AVOD or SVOD or FAST. I think the future, at least in the near term, is going to be more niche product. Like I said, with us, we're a news network starting out with non-biased news and trying to present straight down the middle. And I mentioned that we're kind of in a pivot, but our roadmap does have OTT coming very soon. Just because we're a news organization, we need to be out there, and we're ramping up. But I'm thinking back to the previous shows and things and what we've talked about. But you look at a lot of the niche players that are already established in the space. They're serving traditionally marginalized and underserved communities, and I think that's going to be a big part of the expansion. That you can find something for everybody, but it's for what your interest is. And I think that's where the immediate future is. The future content wise, I think there's still going to be some consolidation of the existing players, but we get these new ones coming in right off the bat. Or not right off the bat. New ones coming in now as a niche service and finding an audience where, if you provide the content, you can make a profit off of 100 users. Unlike, obviously we all saw the Netflix news from yesterday. So,
those are good points. Since there's still going to be room for specialty services serving specific audiences where they need to get that genre of content. But we also see that from the aggregate perspective, people are wanting more aggregation, and certainly I see a lot more M&A happening over probably the next 24 to 36 months. So exciting times if you love to cover M&A, I suppose. Jim, what are your thoughts on how the market has changed today from 2019, 2020-ish?
Well, so first of all, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So I think people are still watching the same content. And I think we need to realize that streaming is just another wire, really. I mean, if you can call it that. The bottom line is that the content that we've been broadcasting for 50 years has gone over cable, it's gone over satellite, it's gone over phone lines, and now it's IP on top of those, and it's coming over your mobile phone. And it really doesn't matter to the consumer. It's just that streaming in apps is a very convenient way to get it, just like for a lot of people, satellite had to be done because they couldn't, they didn't have a cable connection or something like that. So I think the big and this notion of linear dying, I mean, is ridiculous. Obviously, even YouTube, as someone already pointed out, I don't mean YouTube TV, but regular YouTube is, I don't know, a third of the viewing there is lean back television, right? So, and Rob, I think, answered that question very well. But clearly, the big change. I mean, we were talking about linear not being dead 10 years ago, and by the way, broadcast has doubled or maybe even tripled in number of homes using an antenna now. But the bottom line is these fast channels are really the most interesting thing that's happened in the last couple of years, right? The direct to consumer apps that Rob built with CBS All Access, et cetera. Those have been around a while now. So I do believe that the big change coming forward is what I would call the aggregation wars that thankfully we're not doing, but we will provide local channels in the 210 markets to third-party apps. We're already doing that with a couple apps called Stremium and Select TV, but hopefully we'll be doing it to Pluto someday because their consumers are going to want the local channels too, hopefully, and we become a very simple platform. You can download us and use our own app called Local BTV right now, or you can download a third-party app and get your local channels in the program guide. Again, the program guide has come back. Oh my goodness, how surprising is that? This is just another way to discover content. So I do really look forward to more, I would call it targeted content. I don't particularly like the word niche. So targeted content we think is really great. Both Rob and I have been working on hyperlocal content like high schools and other organizations in local DMAs. So I just see more and more content coming, although clearly a slowdown in production because costs are catching up with everyone. So for the younger people in this audience, get it while you can, right? It's probably not going to expand more except for the targeted channels or targeted content.
And Paul, just to build off your question and what Jim and Rob have been saying here, I think there's been some really big strategic shifts, right? And from 2020 to 2022. One is what you showed in your report from Parks and Associates last week, right? Is that the consumers have this continued willingness to add more services, which I think was surprising to us all. I think we thought that we would top out around 3 to 4 services. There would be more app hopping as an activity, but we also continue to see, especially those who are sitting in the upper quintiles, right, of affordability, their ability to add more services into their mix. So I think that's number one. I think number two is we've seen a huge amount of diversification of business models. It's the reason we see Netflix switching from an SVOD model to AVOD model. But it's also that we're continuing to see how do we further exploit the content and content rights that we have in these various business models to meet consumers where they're at. And that leads to development of things like the fast channel business. But it also leads to these platforms taking on more more rights like sports and otherwise to diversify the ways in which they can engage with consumers and bring them into the fold. And I think the last piece, right, we've seen a ton of M&A, we've seen a ton of consolidation. I think we'll see a ton of partnership work built around aggregation in the hopes that the use of those data sets will help create a better and more unified consumer experience that is often frustrated by the fragmented way in which they have to manage their profiles across multiple services. So I think those are the big pieces of transformation that we see sitting across the industry, right? And now what we, from a platform and technology side, right? What we're seeing from our customers are, can you give me a platform that can support all of those business models? Can you deliver it in a way that can scale, give me broadcast quality with global reach and ability to drive up to millions of users at a big sporting events? Can you help me think about the consumer paths, right? Of how we migrate consumers from what might be fast channels, which I believe are kind of the new front porch opportunity, into O&O services where they have much more value to me. And then how do I actually mine that value across what might be more discrete bundling and packaging opportunities? So I think that's the thing that we're seeing as a macro trend sitting across the industry and the transformation, both from a consumer level and from a content level, as well as a technology need and support level.
Thanks, Paul. And I think Jim and Rob, all of you together brought up some really great points, and I think there's some interesting contrast there, right? What's new is old, what's old is new. So seeing the much heralded death of linear, but now we're seeing linear and EPG, the concept of the EPG coming back, right, in fast form. And certainly, Paul, like what you mentioned from our research on the park side, it is interesting. You know, I think what you're referring to is that we have a stat there where we found in our survey work that 25% of streaming households, they take 9 or more services, right? And so the question isn't that there's a peak service count for people. I think that the better that services are in serving people's needs, right, or getting to what they want to see, then that perceived value is high enough to where they feel that they're willing to add on that service to their streaming budget.
I'm just curious. I think the wallet has peaked. I think pay TV won, right, which was basically MVPDs and VMVPDs.
Right.
Despite the VMP success, that's shrinking now. And it
Okay.
appears that pay TV 2, which is the direct-to-consumer apps, and all the millions of apps people are signing up for, as Paul's pointing out, there's a lot of churn there. And I'm not sure the wallet's growing anymore, at least in the United States. So that's an interesting part of this, even while it's exploding.
I think that's a good point, Jim. I think the consumer has voted with their time spent that they're not going to pay for all their content, right? And that's where these fast services have been an incredible filler of content time. And I know John at Frequency is very familiar with the space, but you just look at what Rob was talking about in the previous conversation around Pluto TV and the fact that there are over 60 million monthly active users. And 3 or 4 years ago, it was a nascent property, right? It was something that mainstream barely even knew about, and people in the industry were skeptical if it had real legs. And now it is, the darling of the industry, growing incredibly fast, and every single content company is figuring out what their fast strategy is, right? And in order for them to maximize their reach and revenue on their content, they have to have really exceptional content packagers who are thinking about, to borrow Paul Pastor's words, who are thinking about how are they packaging up the fast channels on that front porch, where they're maximizing all of the reach that they can get from their users. And then what is their acquisition strategy for the journey of that user into their other channels, whether that be an OTT service, whether that be their website, whether that be purchasing a ticket to something, buying something. That journey has gotten a lot more complicated, but these free services have allowed content creators to get in front of a lot more users a lot faster and a lot easier.
Yeah, and not to pile on the growth of fast and everything else, but I don't think it's a coincidence in the last couple of years, media companies the likes of New Fox and Paramount and Comcast NBC making investments in Zumo, Tubi, and Pluto respectively, and putting more of their IP into those platforms, marketing those platforms, and figuring out how to integrate it into their businesses, whether it's advertising, distribution, et cetera. I think the large media companies that were in the pay TV one, as Jim alluded to, saw these trends, planned for it, and made really wise investments, and are putting a lot more focus into that area of their business.
And I think we see with fast, and I'll dive in with a couple thoughts here. I think fast is such an interesting phenomenon right now, because as we see the market come to grips with maybe not the mortality of SVOD, but the fact that there is a finite amount of oxygen for full price subscriptions as far as available market. And so when you look at what is a force multiplier when it comes to available market, there's nothing that resonates more easily and commonly with almost everyone than it costs nothing, right? Free, everybody resonates with. And on top of that, I think, the things that you touched on, Jim and Paul, we're also seeing an increased appetite now for simplification, aggregation, just making either the billing relationships simpler, or the number of apps that you're consuming from simpler, or the number of bundles you pay for, fewer in number. And so I think that fast ties into both of that, both of those prevailing wins, if you will. And I think that we're going to see a lot of activity in those areas, especially when it comes to aggregation, bundling, M&A going forward. So it's an interesting time to be a solution provider in this market. If that's a good setup for our next question, because we've touched on a few things that I'm about to ask, but I think that this is something that applies to everyone in the panel. So if everybody could chip in on this one, starting with Paul. Today's consumer expects and consumes content from a varied mix of sources and business models. From free to paid, from SVOD to AVOD to fast to web video, YouTube, what have you. And what are the most pressing challenges for the industry right now in delivering content to all of these different business models and service types? And what are best practices in solving them? Paul from First Light, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, with firsthand experience of some of those challenges being, hey, I have one file and now I have to get it to 1,000 new places. And how do I actually manage for a file normalization, data normalization, and then sending it across in a format that's acceptable to the receiving platform? That is most certainly one of the biggest pressing challenges. coupled with, I think, the real lack of a standardized metadata that can make all of that content discoverable. I think that those are, when we think about, service offerings and where the consumers are going, I think when we've discussed here, right, we have all these free models that are now available, whether that's AVOD, fast channels, you have your SVOD services, you have the potentially, them living in the same place. And what you need to be able to do for a consumer is make sure that you can always surface that content in a way that is ultimately discoverable. And fundamentally, as everybody has talked about or will talk about, and importantly, what we heard from Rob is how do you drive that in a way that is personalized to their experience to keep them attracted and retained. And I think that those the reality is today in this very fragmented marketplace, you almost have individualized, personalized experiences within app and nothing that's sitting across, which is why we see the power of these aggregation platforms, whether that is Apple or YouTube or others that are looking to play in this space and fundamentally be the one-stop shop. I think that when I think about like some of the near-term opportunity, I think what's really funny as we sit here and talk about FAST as the new business model that people are pursuing. I think what's interesting is that we're taking what is the old model of linear television, putting in a bunch of ads and saying that's the best consumer experience that we can offer at this moment. I think that there is a real charge and evolution that needs to happen within the fast channel space, which is looking at how you can drive more personalization into that experience so that when I log in and look for my MTV 90s channel, what I'm receiving is something from Madonna. Well, maybe maybe another counterpart here is getting Pearl Jam. And then from there, the experiences continue to build based on what we know and understand of that consumer. I think we have to kind of be looking at where the future of these business models are headed and how do we think about, from a tech enablement perspective, how to actually enable those experiences sitting across multiple devices and multiple ecosystems.
And obviously a big part of this is just modernizing existing things. I mean, obviously broadcast was the original free ad supported TV. It still is, right? And the good news is about throwing the internet into it. And eventually next generation TV is that we can add targeted digital ad insertion to it. And we can make it a lot easier discovery situation, as well as the personalization Paul was talking about. So it's great to have the new technologies and the app-based presentation. But you don't necessarily have to get too fancy just to help people discover and watch, what's already out there.
Thanks, Jim and Paul. I think, Matt, I'd love to hear what you think are some of the most, or what are the best practices, or what are some of the most effective ways to solve the challenges of delivering to so many different types of services and so many types of delivery modi? Wrong word there, but all these different challenges. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, prioritization of resources, right? It comes back to the basics. In addition to file formats being different, every single one of these platforms requires a different type of content, right? And so you have to think about, to be successful, right? And so you have to think about creating or packaging content that is specific to what the consumer is expecting within that environment. And so, cutting the content, editing the content that you're creating from your single feed into something that works across, the various social media platforms, the FAST platforms, your OTT platforms, your partner distribution streaming services. It's a lot. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of resource, a lot of effort. And once you do all of that effort to get it distributed, it's then a lot of effort to get your content discovered and then watched and viewed or subscribed to on a regular basis, right? And so, there's a few steps in the journey. And, when you think about some of these bigger sports leagues or media companies, it's just about where can you get the most return for the resources that you have. And I think one of the things that, the businesses that we're in and some of the emerging technologies like FAST is, you need to be in it for a couple of years to see some return. And you need to have leadership invest in that time period. Otherwise, it's not going to give you the results that you're looking for, and you can make some pretty poor decisions around the viability of those if you don't give it the time to materialize.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, it's definitely worth it, the time and investment. John, what are your thoughts on this as well?
Yeah, I think Paul and Matt have hit a lot of the key points. I mean, you've got the consumer touch points, which is there's a lot of choice, SVOD, AVOD, fast, different platforms. You're subscribing to some, not to others. How the OSs and platforms curate that content and put in front of the consumer to ease the kind of analysis paralysis of deciding what to watch when you don't know what to watch, I think is one pain point. In the industry, and you can look at this from a media software perspective, I think the notion of the kind of one-stop shop should be over. I don't think everyone can do everything at the same time. Delivering video across the internet in the various packages, as Paul had mentioned, is expensive. It's resource intensive. It's difficult. Distributors have all unique requirements. So I think in the media technology space, really focusing and investing in your core product and what you're really, really good at, and where you see the future and where you're making your bets is important. Frequency is obviously chosen and looked at fast and linear, and the next generation of broadcast is that. And we've partnered with other folks that we think are best in class in their space, like Endeavor Streaming on the direct-to-consumer side. We're not pretending to build apps and managing all that data in direct-to-consumer business. We've partnered with that. So I think there's an area of interoperability for like-minded companies to come together and help make the content provider brand decision easier and have content and different things working together in sync across the internet, really, as we go into this next phase of distribution.
Good point, Sean. Rob,
Yeah.
last one, I'd love to hear from you about some of the challenges we have with distribution across all these different platforms and endpoints and business models.
Well, as a content provider, first off, and we've been pounding this gavel for years, is discovery. And every single person on this panel, either the last question or this question, has brought up discovery. I think some of the solutions, as you brought up, Paul, might be aggregation and aggregators. Whether that's a service like Jim's, or I'm looking over at my smart TV over here on the screen where I've got various things rotating. With what we're trying to do, also trying to get it out to all the platforms is very difficult for us from a technical standpoint, just because we have what our differentiating factor, again, trying to be non-biased news, is we have a feature that you can see on our website if you go see it, that is very hard to translate to any kind of channel, whether it's SVOD, AVOD, or FAST, because you lose our interactivity and what we feel makes us special going onto this platform. So that's why it's been a very long, deliberate, measured rollout on anything other than desktop and mobile. And one last fascinating thing Paul brought up was targeted content. We're all wanting to see targeted, at least from a monetary standpoint, to see targeted advertising. Well, one of the next big future of what we're talking about is targeted content. I've got a good friend in Europe who's a serial entrepreneur, just like Jim is, who is now working on something like that. He's beyond advertising. He wants to come up with a way to have a linear, lean back, customized channel that's the same topic, but like as Paul said, he gets Madonna and I get Pearl Jam. So that's a huge part of what's coming up.
I think that's called TikTok, Rob.
But to everyone's credit, when we start talking about personalization and all of this and fast, it's the acronym that everybody's talking about, but I think we're still in the early stages of it, right? We're in the, are we rounding first base and going to second? Are we someplace in there? It's just, there's going to be more traditional media brands coming into the space, more focus on the distribution of these direct-to-consumer services, the smart TV manufacturers obviously putting it front and center. And I think you're going to see a lot of innovation in this space rapidly in the next 12 to 24 months.
Agreed, and I think it's there's a challenge there where the temptation is to dive into distribution as far and wide as possible. But as Rob said, you need to do it in an intentional way, right? To make sure that you're doing it in a form that is as beneficial to you as it is to the audience, of course. But one of the ways is to get smarter at how you're personalizing the content that's, let's say, being distributed over a fast channel, or making sure that you're finding a way to drive some of that traffic back to your full fat subscription from the fast version of your content portfolio, right? So it has to be done in an intentional way.
Paul, I was curious. One of the things I'm seeing, and these are all, we're all sort of platform companies here, mostly except for Rob, and which is great. But what I'm seeing is a lot of content owners sort of over engineering their move to IP. It almost reminds me of like the Imagine Online, right? It's almost like the techies are taking over, and the content people are just going whatever you say. I wonder if anyone else gets the feeling out there, and again, not amongst suppliers like us so much, but really the content owners.
Interesting.
I think there are big investments being made on the content side of the house right now, in technology, in direct to consumer, and I think it's really important at this moment as it's a keystone of their business. That said, over the long run, I don't think they're going to be technology companies, and I don't think they're going to be media plus technology companies. I think they will be media companies, right? And I think there will be a reversion back to we don't want to be building and owning all of this technology. There are services and partners who can do this better than we can for cheaper, and I think you'll start to see some, not all, but some of the big media companies go back to a partner model and use platforms or specific point services for some of the things that they're building right now.
Yeah, well, it will always come back to resources. I think when you realize how many human beings are involved in these processes of just producing content, curating content, as the technology develops and more automation comes into these workflows, are you really going to invest in that type of technology when you can get it from folks that are focusing that on as their core and making it much more cost efficient for everybody? I think intention is accurate. What are you producing? Where are you distributing it? How are you packaging it? And are you using the best available technology and resources to do it in a profitable way? Obviously, everybody's got to pay close attention to that.
And the trajectory and life cycle of the company is really important, right? Are you in growth mode or are you in profit mode, right? There are different measures for what success looks like depending on what stage of your trajectory you're in, and so there's going to be different investments based on that.
I think that the runway on the growth mode versus profit mode is shortened over the last few months as we've seen what's gone on in the universe. But I kind of leading into Jim's question, I think first and foremost, like this is a business that's built on telling stories, and I think Matt's right that there's a significant amount of investment that's going into by these platforms. Whether that you look at what happened with the Indian Premier League rights over with Viacom 18 rights, the second biggest sports rights sale ever, and all digital rights. Whether or not we see, at the same time, others making the same types of investments. I think what we're seeing today is there's more emphasis on the ROI of those investments than we've probably seen in the past as a function of kind of some of the changes in the marketplace. I think we ultimately, as service providers, are looking to drive the enablement, right? How do we partner for them to be able to reach every single consumer? And if you think about now all the available business models, I always think about it in terms of supply and demand. And we used to have a one-stop, maybe 3 or 4 packages that a cable operator could offer, and you kind of got under different parts of that demand curve. Now today, what we can do from a technology perspective, right, mirroring both our capabilities as a platform with data and insights and actionable insights, is to be able to say, listen, let's get further underneath that curve every single time, so we know that that consumer may take 3 subscriptions plus an AVOD plus a linear channel plus maybe a ticket purchase, as Matt had referenced before, so we can continue to get more discreet about how to best serve those consumers, how to extract more value from those consumers, and that's all driven through the technology platform capabilities and data and decisioning that can be brought about by vendors like ourselves.
Thanks, Paul. I think we could go on with this one for a long time, but I want to actually move things along to the next question, but not without breaking away for a second to go to an audience polling question that we had asked. And so if we could bring that up, we asked the audience, what are the effective ways to utilize content, or what are the most effective ways to utilize content to drive loyalty and engagement in today's market? So they had a choice between content exclusivity and original content, more intelligent personalization, higher quality of curation and or production, bundling and aggregation for value and or simplicity, windowing and timing, or higher use of live events and sports, and of course, other. So by far, 46%, the top answer, they said content exclusivity and original content is the most effective way to utilize content to drive loyalty and engagement today. And any thoughts on the panel? Is this a surprise to you, or did you think there was going to be a close runner-up, or what did you think?
Couldn't agree more. This is why people spend money on content. It's a great acquisition vehicle. It's a great way to retain some of your core consumers. With sports rights, what we're seeing obviously in that investment, it's not only what the exclusivity is, but let's also think about the immediacy as people diversify their business models and have more ad-supported opportunities. Again, it's delivering a large audience at scale really quickly. That helps them also drive and attract attention around all their other properties. So of no surprise, I know that we all have seen in our own research and our own use of platforms, and importantly as a content person myself, that consumers, once they get in the fold, they spend a lot of time with other content. The engagement strategies built around recommendation engines, leveraging a lot of the library and older IP becomes increasingly important, but that top of the funnel is so much driven by what is original and exclusive.
I would, the thing that worries me a little bit about original programming is only having it available on one app or something. Now, I understand why that sucks everyone into that app. But if you look at some things, I mean, I think the NFL versus the MLB is a great example, right? The NFL, they're not going to run away from broadcast because they want to be everywhere. And I think it, to some degree, if I'm a producer for a small show that's stuck inside a big media company and it's only on their app, right? Okay, well, hopefully I got a giant check up front. But the bottom line is you got to be wherever the consumer is. And that's why I think in most cases it's better for content producers to provide their content to any app or platform that has viewers that want to see it.
Yeah, I think the content exclusivity, us on the business side, we can understand that, and the original content. Obviously, the cost for original content is going to keep coming up, which is why you see, a lot of shows coming in from Canada and being presented as exclusives, like Letterkenny and Schmitz Creek was. It's a double-edged sword because it's not consumer friendly. I run into that all the time because I'm getting old and I'm losing my memory and I forget what channels things are on, and I spend more time trying to find it than actually watching it. And again, to being old, I've been watching South Park for 25 years, and if you've seen their new specials on Paramount, I believe, yes, on Paramount. It's basically them biting the hand that feeds them, because they're talking about this very issue about how hard with the exclusivity, how unconsumer friendly that is. But like I said, we understand the business reasons for it, and it makes a lot of sense. But we've always got to, especially as a content creator, I'm always thinking about this, always looking at it from the consumer standpoint as well. And I don't think there's a real solution to it right now, because we have to write the checks. It's I hear it from my stepson. I hear it all the time, is why in the hell is this here and not there, which was something we were used to on broadcast and linear, and there's a problem to be solved there, I guess is what I'm saying.
The cycles of media.
Maybe back to Paul, we've talked about the aggregation where you get multiple services under one subscription, and there they are. You and I have talked before where I subscribe to the Disney bundle through my phone provider. And so I've got Disney, ESPN, and Hulu, and forget 3/4 of the time, but it's there when I need
it. I think that live events, particularly tier 1 sports, is going to further disrupt consumer behavior, right? There's a lot of talk about NFL Sunday Ticket. If you read it and believe it, maybe for the first time it will be off an MVPD platform, distributed over IP. And there's going to be a lot of people waking up before the season saying, where am I going to watch this now? And maybe they're directed to a video experience that they haven't watched on a certain device and getting used to that. So, while live events in sports was 0% of the responses, I think that as sports rights and media rights holders figure out their multi-platform distribution strategy, and the folks like Paramount and Disney acquire those rights for Paramount Plus and ESPN Plus, et cetera, there's going to be a whole new wave of adoption, and the distributors will need to build that layer of discovery into it. You're already seeing it with Apple, with some of their Major League Baseball broadcasts and how they're putting that alongside their own IP and other programming. So,
but it's really no different than it was, right? If you're in LA and you don't have Spectrum, you can't see the Dodgers. It used to be if you didn't have DirecTV, I think you didn't see the Sunday Ticket or whatever, right? Now it's going to be whatever, Amazon or whoever. So that in that sense, streaming hasn't really changed anything, and I think we got to get back to go where the consumers are, and so they got to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, you're right. It's the cycles of media, right? It's just repeating itself in a different distribution mechanism, right? And so, we're with the great unbundling of TV at the moment, and I think Paul and Jim, and I think both Pauls mentioned it. Like, there's going to be an aggregation moment, right? And like we're already in the beginning parts of a media and entertainment M&A spree. That will not quiet down for a while, especially as some of the stock prices have been hit. And so I think we're going to be in a situation where in the next 24 months, you're going to start to see the bundling start to happen again. Now, I don't know what shape that will take, but we're going to get back into a bundled world, because that's where you can invest the most in content and create the best consumer experience and make the most money. And right now we're challenged to do that, because we're putting a lot of money in content and we only have one business model at the moment. That's changing very quickly with AVOD entering the space. But yeah, the next 18 to 24 months will be fun for the M&A side of the business.
Well, Matt, you have set me up well to ask my next question to the panel. Before I jump to that, though, just a reminder to the audience, we will have a few minutes at the end. We're probably going to run about 5 minutes over, but we'll have a few minutes to do Q&A. So submit your Q&A questions via the questions tab in Swap Card, and we'll get to them in a few minutes. So that said, like I said, Matt, you set me up well for this next question. And the next question I had is that, so right now, content overload is a big thing. Overload of choice is a big thing for consumers and top of mind for them. And whether you want to call it fragmentation, subscription fatigue, any other expression du jour being used by media in the industry, it describes consumer reality where there's an overload of choices, an overload of services, billing relationships, and options for consumers. And so my thought is part of using content to drive stronger loyalty may in fact lie in making those content choices simpler for consumers. But this is easy to say, right? It's harder to execute. And so if we're looking at how best to drive high engagement, but to be able to tap into that need for simplification, making things simpler for consumers, how's it best tackled? And is it super aggregation of the interface? We see that's very popular today. Or is it more intelligent bundling of content together for consumers? Or is it smarter and more powerful recommendation? Or what do we do here? So Paul, Rob, and Jim, I think you might have quite a bit to say here. You first, Paul Pastor, what are your thoughts on this?
I think the answer is all the above. It's going to have to be all those, looking as a personalizer, Paul, having started another company, Stream, with looking at the aggregation play, looking to evolve the business models, looking to find ways to drive smart bundling. Those are all things that I believe have to happen in the industry. The question is how do you do that while driving time and attention in a space that is unbelievably competitive, given the levels of spend we see across all the other providers. But I absolutely believe it's all the above in terms of what needs to be done to kind of simplify the experience for the consumer and ultimately maximize the opportunity for the distributors.
Great. Rob Dillon, what are your thoughts on how we tackle making things simpler for consumers and still driving high engagement?
The first thing I want to hit on that, which absolutely fascinates me, for years we were thinking the sweet spot was 2 or 3 2 or 3 services, and your own research showing that people don't care if they want to see it, 8, 9, 10 services. And that, to me, that still fascinates me. But, then I look and I've got 7 or 8 services now, although a lot of them are bundled, as I brought up earlier. And it goes right back to what Paul said, all of the above. But, some services, I use Apple TV exclusively. They're trying to make it where I can find everything across my apps, but it's very clunky, and it's I just I go into my provider and go from there. It's a very difficult question. It's something as an industry has to concentrate on. Goes back to the previous question as well. Discovery, aggregation. How do we make this pro-consumer instead of our accountants?
Right. Well, we want it to be pro-consumer as much as possible. Jim Long from Digi. How do we tackle this, making things better, simpler, or faster to get the content for consumers, but also drive really high engagement and loyalty?
Well, I'm glad you put it that way, because the top job you were talking about, and I think Paul was trying to tackle that more than most of us, that's a really hard one. We're focused on making local channels, whether they're IP-based or antenna-based, easier to get, simpler, faster, and it better be cheaper, because this is ad-supported TV. And let me tell you, there's a lot of hands in that pie, and you can't add infrastructure costs to the mix that much. So I think it starts with simple. And if I was building an aggregator app as opposed to supplying local channels to one, which we do, I would focus first on the basics. Do all the wheels turn? Does the steering wheel work? And because you basically have to get free and paid, VOD and linear in the same UI, and you need to start with, what does the consumer, my client, care about? What do they have? And first of all, present that simply, and then on top of that, try to get into all this very interesting but difficult personalization and gamification and all that. But getting that first block done, linear, VOD, free, pay, that I think is keep it simple if you can. It's not an easy problem.
I think when to build off of what Jim just said, though, he's right that when you're building all these and doing all these things, you also need to have a scaled technology solution that can get you those efficiencies as you build out. And often what we're seeing, right, is that people have, especially because of all the M&A activity that's happened in the last few years, is that people are running multiple stacks with multiple brands, with multiple business models. And what they ultimately needed to figure out is how to actually consolidate that into one platform that can service a multi-brand, multi-business model approach. And that's fundamentally kind of why we started First Light, for that very reason, is to say, let's consolidate those pieces. So as your business grows, your cost structure is scaling in a way that lets you turn a profit, which is so much of the focus today, right? At the end of the day.
Great. And I think that for everyone, it's going to be a challenge of how to drive this, drive engagement and loyalty going forward, but to still be able to tap into this desire for, we're going to see increasing aggregation, we're going to see increasing M&A, we're going to see increasing bundling. So certainly that's going to be happening on the industry side, but also for consumers, there is that desire there to solve this mess, this overload of services and choices and so on, and multiple billing relationships and what have you. And Rob, for example, we see service provider bundling of services, right, with your cell phone provider, right, or your home internet provider. So that's going to be increasingly utilized going forward. And I think that somewhere in there, just as you mentioned, Rob, some of that content you're not really paying attention to, right? It just happens to come as a bundle. So I think that there's a seam in there to exploit where there's still the capability to drive engagement there, but it needs to be handled deftly now that people are going to be increasingly taking bundles. That doesn't mean that they're engaging with every part of the bundle. So there's still a little bit deeper layer of marketing to get into there to drive that engagement deeper into the bundle to really make it of value to everyone. So I'd love to talk more on this one. However, we're slightly against time, so I want to dive away for a second. There's a couple questions I'm not even going to be able to get to because you've been a great panel so far. All 5 of you have had a great conversation that we've all benefited from. And I'm going to have to cut it short so we can go to some audience questions here with the time we have left. So the first one I'm going to pick out to get your thoughts on collectively as a panel. Let's see, there's a lot of good ones here. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's that Netflix one, please. This is one that's top of mind, especially this week. Do you see Netflix's move to ad-based services or an ad-based tier and also charging for password sharing working hand in hand? Will the service be able to kick the freeloaders, the shared access users, we'll call them, off the platform and then capture them back on a free ad-supported tier? Who wants to take this one first?
I will just say, I don't know the answer, but I will say it's probably an arbitrage that they've done the math on, that they understand where that sits.
Correct.
And it's a good sign for the business. It's a good sign that they are moving in these directions, right? Like,
yeah, no, I
it's
mean,
maturing.
And yet you have to have ad supported. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not the first tier. Maybe like Hulu, it just cuts down the subscription. But it's, anything to help the consumer has got to be a smart move.
And I mean, if you just look at the Disney numbers and the breakout and the ARPUs, right? Like the advertising subscription ARPU is just so much larger than just the subscription ARPU, right? And like, at this point, from an audience development perspective on the Netflix side, lots of smart people over there. They see the curve slowing. Now it's an ARPU game for them. It's just, it's a good. They're operating a good strategy.
Hulu, right? Hulu apparently, right? You can do it without ads at whatever it is, $12, or you can do it with ads at $6, and it turns out they get 12 because of the ads. I think they used to have a free service, didn't they? I don't remember. I wonder if they'll go back to that.
I was at Hulu when we were distributing both a free service and a subscription service, and I can tell you that it was quite confusing at the time for some consumers because rights weren't in both. I think the great thing about Netflix is that they're an innovator in video, online video, and I think that the video experience, as Paul mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot of room for innovation in terms of the ad units and how the consumers are interacting with these ads. And I think once Netflix gets their ad tier into the market, gets the data, having them as a technology company innovating in online advertising with their partners or whoever else, Microsoft, whatever it may be, is going to be beneficial to the industry. And the reality is the narrative that Netflix can keep increasing pricing and everybody's just going to retain, that's just false, right? At a certain point, you have a cost-sensitive consumer who now has multiple SVOD services with very compelling originals and live sports, and they may need other price points to accommodate the new bundle, and it just makes sense to have it. So I'm glad that they're an entrant into this market, and it speaks to
they should stop saying linear is dead. That's just ridiculous. So.
Linear is not dead. No.
Well, certainly I'll agree with Matt that it's a good business move for them, and I think that people, I won't say people, I think a lot of the headlines we see, the breathless headlines of is it maximum SVOD, are the growth days for Netflix over, et cetera. I think a lot of those headlines bypass the fact that they are the old guard, right? I mean, that's not necessarily negative. It's like they are the vanguard for the market, right? They're the most mature along the service life cycle curve. They are bigger and more penetrated than possibly any other brand in the market. So if they're going through this business evolution now, if anything, it's a testing ground to show the rest of the market ways in which eventually they may get to, or they may have to deal with these decisions as well at some point in the future. So when you look at the, to your point, John, there's a maximum available market for a full price subscription, right? So if you're going to look at expanding your available market beyond that, what are all the areas in the market that you can't reach? Well, something less than a full price subscription. And to your point, Matt, yes, that's a sizable additional revenue stream coming in, right? So it's not necessarily the old equation of just the dollar amount you're getting per household that is qualitatively the ending ARPU, right? It's a combination now. So I think that they're going to manage that in a balanced way, as you said. Paul Pastor, I'm saying Paul Pastor because I'm with Paul Erickson, so I'm just calling out your last name there. As you said, they've probably done the math, and they've got a percentage that they've assigned to the number of people who might be alienated by one or both of these measures. But certainly finding a way to leverage this problem that all streaming services face, right? Password sharing, unauthorized usage, finding a way to find that seam where they can extract a few more dollars of ARPU from the household and not alienate that existing revenue stream and that existing subscriber relationship is going to be something that potentially the entire industry has to figure out, right?
Does
in order
that
to
mean
tighten
they
up
just
their
can't?
finances.
Does that mean Netflix? You guys know? Does that? I mean, why don't they just limit the number of streams per simultaneous streams per account? Doesn't that get rid of it?
Well, if you've got a lot of people in a household, it might be a problem. So we'll see. I think that everybody's interested in all the different ways that you can solve this. And lots of creative minds are working on it. And it's in the industry's interest to figure out a way to find a happy medium. So,
and just real quick, with Jen, you got to remember one thing Netflix is going to be fighting their entire existence is they used to encourage password sharing. And anytime they say they're going to crack down on it, people bring up their old tweets and say, yeah, look what you said a year ago. So there's a balance there they're going to have to find. And a lot of people, they're all, spitting vinegar and, oh my God, ads, and I can't share anymore. There's going to be a lot that don't go anywhere. And as everybody said, obviously they've got a whole floor there in LA that's spent the last year studying that and what the sweet spot is. So.
Well, at least finally my dad has to start paying for Netflix.
Well, there's an upside. Do we have a little bit of leeway to go over or no? Maybe. Okay. Well, my apologies. We had a lot more audience questions here, but because you've all been so great in contributing your input, we're over time. So I'd like to move on. I'd like to thank all of you. Actually, I'd like to thank all of you on the panel just now, and also our esteemed panelists on both of our panel discussion sessions today. We enjoyed all the insights delivered from all of the different perspectives that you offered collectively, and we at Parks Associates and the audience are truly grateful for your time. And for all of you, both panelists and audience alike, please join us again for our next future video session taking place September 22nd, where we'll cover a hot topic in today's OTT landscape, which is digital piracy and distribution. So be sure to come back and join us in September for that session. And along with our September 22nd session, also be sure to join us again for our final future video event to close out the year with our big in-person 3-day event this December in Marina del Rey, California. Quick reminder, if you're interested in sponsorship opportunities for upcoming future video sessions in 2022 or in 2023, if you're interested in inquiring about our research or speaking in future video events, please reach out to Ashton, Jason, or Mindy Sue on our team to discuss the possibilities in detail. And Future of Video is only one of a variety of conference series that Parks produces, both virtual and in person. And along with Future of Video, we have a full slate of events already lined up in 2023 covering the smart home, smart energy, and connected health sectors. Also, we're launching our new Smart Spaces event, which examines the challenges and opportunities in delivering next generation experiences within MDU and hospitality environments. And we're excited for our event lineup for next year, and we encourage you to reach out to us if you'd like to discuss participation in or sponsorship of any of our conference events. Parks Associates is also extremely active in producing incisive, insight-filled thought leadership pieces, white papers, and webinars, and in discussing the latest technology industry topics in our Connected Consumer podcast. So please reach out to us to discuss the possibilities to participate in these areas as well. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and also to our panelists, and thanks to our sponsors. And we hope to see you all back here again for our next future video session on digital piracy and distribution, taking place September 22nd. Take care.
Since empty offices, video conferencing, and virtual events, working together in new ways, and finding unique ways of connecting with each other, we at Parks Associates are excited to see you face to face to collaborate, network, and innovate. We've brought back in-person conferences in 2022. Join us in December for the next in-person Future of Video, OTT, pay TV, and digital media. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Parks Associates OTT Video Market Tracker service includes ongoing quarterly analysis of market trends and profiles of 300 plus OTT video service providers in the US and Canada. Consumers are service stacking and hopping in and out of services, paying for a program or season and then canceling when they want. As a result, the average churn rate for SVODs increased to 45% in 2021, a 5.5% jump from 2020. Now, 80% of consumers have an OTT service and 46% of them have 5 or more services. Subscription to the OTT Video Market Tracker includes comprehensive tracking of OTT video services like Netflix, HBO, YouTube, and Amazon, and smaller niche services. Our analysts update deliverables throughout the year, including a monthly update and quarterly subscriber estimates documenting service features, key service differentiators, quarterly subscriber estimates, pricing and business models, updates on existing players, and profiles and industry implications for new services. This research features a great new way to blend company profiles with industry research, data, and analysis of competing players' strengths and weaknesses in the space. To subscribe or request more information, please contact us at sales@parksassociates.com.